You can believe my man, why the kids.
I didn't know until I said something. I came late because it was fast. Somebody else said, no. I don't know how long. I think it's on 40. Even I get what you said, it's true. They don't know what's in the.
I'm laying on the truck.
I was just gonna say, it was no option. Okay, welcome everyone to the Conservation Commission meeting at the Municipal Center for April 9th. We have one member of the commission, for the record, Neil Stanley, who is away on vacation, so he will not be present at the meeting. All the other members are present, so we will be able to do voice votes instead of roll call, which we would need to do if someone is online on Zoom as a member of the commission. But that doesn't really matter to you all because you all are here, and anyone else online who may or may not be watching in cable 8 or 6 as we're welcome. So we don't have an issue with capacity in the room. That was a bit of a concern because I know some people were flyers for one of the hearing items or 2 of them. And so that's good. That means that the meeting can proceed without having to postpone it to a larger forum, if that was the case, because of fire code regulations, there's something being exceeded, but looks good. So welcome everybody. We will open the hearing with the continued hearing for a notice of intent for ANR Lot 1, Blackstone Street, map 62, Lot 1, which is the construction of a single-family home within a 100-foot buffer zone to the BVW, bordering vegetated wetlands. Applicant is Louis Petroli of Wall Street Development. And there's somebody here from, if you don't have somebody on the agenda for it, do you want to identify yourself, please?
I'm sorry, Tom Schutz from Goddard Consulting here on behalf of Lou, who couldn't be here tonight, unfortunately.
Okay.
So between the last hearing and this, there were some slight changes made to the site plan, specifically adding a small wetland that Hannah flagged. And we also reflagged and rehung them all in the field to allow Hannah to then go out and review those flags. We also did a site walk 2 Saturdays ago and answered any questions the commission might have for this lot. I don't think there was too many questions regarding it. Just kind of to make everybody aware again, this green line here is our bordering vegetated wetland. Here, this dark blue is the 25-foot no disturb buffer zone. This blue here is the 50-foot buffer zone. And then finally, we have the 100-foot buffer zone. The orange line is our erosion control barrier staying outside of the 25-foot no disturb buffer to the BVW, and also this little isolated vegetated wetland that's off-site. This is a single-family house project, only in buffer zone and undeveloped lot. If you have any questions based on our new revised plan, I'd be happy to answer them, or anything that came up on the site walk that wasn't addressed, then be happy to answer that as well.
That IVW you mentioned, that's the PVP that was.
No, the PVP is this yellow shown here. This isolated wetland is an off-site small little depression.
Just for the record,
Yep.
people in the room, because I know there are a number of people in the room that are interested in this project. When you're giving acronyms, could you at least the first time identify PR, for example, PVV?
Potential vernal pool. IVW, isolated vegetated wetland.
Thank you.
BVW, bordering vegetated wetland.
Thank you. That answers your question, Don. You
I did have a question. So that red line that's near that potential vernal pool,
Yes.
what was the distance from the vernal pool to that line?
So this red line is actually the property boundary.
Okay,
And I would estimate that the potential vernal pool to any work would be probably greater than around 60 feet back to the edge of the house, maybe to the actual erosion control barrier, roughly 30 to 35 feet.
but not 100 feet from the potential vernal pool,
The house itself,
anywhere.
Anywhere.
any work, not 100 feet away from that, correct?
Well, the 100-foot goes right through the house.
From the potential vernal
Which
pool.
in the bylaws is distance from bylaws.
Right.
So
Okay.
you were, did we put in actually for a variance request for the vernal pool, which I believe is either has been certified or is in the process of being certified. And while it was flagged by your representative, we have not yet had a chance to have that independently reviewed.
So that one's not being certified. That one's
That's the other one,
on-site
okay,
Yep.
that's what.
That's just one that I noted in the field as being potentially a vernal pool and then had them reflag it.
This is the one with the 22 tires in it.
Yeah, right,
Yes.
so
Yes.
we request APU for the certain delineations, or were you just looking at
I was just looking, yeah.
that particular vernal pool? I'm not sure if in the past we've always had someone verifying whether this is the agent or a peer reviewer on our behalf as opposed to just the applicants. But given this few number of vernal pools in the area, state, town, and the sensitivity of them, I think that often we felt it was warranted, even if it's sometimes pretty clear. In many cases, vernal pools, because they're so seasonal, depending on when we actually go around to looking at them, it may be a harder call, and we often have to wait to see if we want to delineate / certify them until the right time of the season. So in this particular case, with that particular vernal pool, what's your opinion?
I mean, the vernal pool itself, you know, under the bylaw classifying it, like, we presume that it would be a vernal pool,
Right.
even though it's not certified. And, you know, the resource area, the 100-foot buffer zone associated with the vernal pool extends to, you know, the edge of that bordering vegetative wetland. So the 50-foot no disturb zone off of that is, you know, what we typically call for in the bylaw. For the no disturb zone off of a vernal pool, which
Could be up to 100.
the erosion control line looks like it's at the 25-foot.
Correct.
Okay.
So it's the 50, if we went at least 50, assuming that we as have the right to do right now in bylaw, assume that a vernal pool, an assumed vernal pool can be considered a vernal pool as far as for protection by the bylaws. In Bellingham, if we at the minimum want to do 50 feet from the closest point of the vernal pool, can you scope off that there and just see how close to the house? And
50 feet from the edge of the vernal pool.
the closest point to the house, yes, from the vernal pool.
50 feet from the edge of the vernal pool would probably fall between this line and then our 50-foot buffer zone, because we have probably around 5 or 7 feet between that and the edge of the BBW, and this is the 50-foot buffer from the BBW. So probably somewhere falling between these two blue lines would be the 50-foot buffer to the vernal pool.
And the two blue lines are,
The 25-foot buffer to bordering vegetated wetland and 50-foot buffer to bordering vegetated wetland. And then our PVP is interior of our BBW.
so in fact, the 50-foot that you do demarcate is about 50 feet from the vernal pool, coincidentally, especially at the closest point to the house.
Correct.
Okay. Which
Well,
is,
may I ask a clarifying question on that though? There's two wetlands, right?
Yes,
Are both potential vernal pools or just that one?
just this area that we flagged out in yellow would be the area of the potential vernal pool. This is just an isolated depression that was seen by Hannah in the field that we flagged out. And the buffer zone is shown associated with that as well.
Do you, and you concur with that? Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Thank you.
other questions? May I ask one, just a second, let's the commission asked first, then I will definitely open it up to you all, so just patient 1 second, please. Okay. You?
The only site plan we have, the one that's labeled sewage disposal system. But not a separate sheet for grading or a separate sheet for.
The other information was right there, yeah.
There is proposed grade lines on here, on this sheet. They are the dark black lines that you could see, going close to the 50-foot buffer zone here. And then there's a second one located just within the 50-foot buffer zone on this property. There's gonna be minimal grading actually in the buffer zone, just the one coming off of the edge of the house and then the small one down here in the 50-foot buffer.
And existing is the.
Existing is the
Dash mark.
small dashed hashes. So we're only looking at really a maximum of 2 feet of grading, or, sorry, 4 feet of grading total from the edge of the house down into the actual buffer, the 50-foot buffer zone. So this is 4 feet between the two proposed.
It's the only, that's all, that's.
4 feet over how long a
20 foot
distance?
Distance.
4 foot drop
Yeah,
over
20 feet.
That's a pretty steep drop. I mean, 4 feet down over 20 feet, not. What is it, 2, 3, 5, 5, 1? Okay. All right, this moment. And have we got a copy of this revised site plan, and is that what was
It's in
on?
the portal.
That was one of the portal, I didn't check the date when I looked at it yesterday. Okay. All right, I will, open, if there are no other questions from the commission at this point in time, I will open it up. I ask that you identify yourselves for the record, please, that you come up. Just so that you know, the microphones, the four blue dots, right? That's the one for, I think I've been told, the microphones that the public can hear for like cable A and so forth are in the ceiling. So just speak as loudly as you can without screaming, please. But come up to the front if you'd like to, especially if you're way in the back so that everybody can hear you. And, John, you're, sir, you were first raising your hands, I'll ask you.
Dr. Robert DeVoe, Linport, Bellingham.
Welcome.
My question is regarding the wetlands and vernal pool that you were referencing. The other wetlands, is that being not classified as a vernal pool due to physical characteristic, due to lack of physical characteristics? Or lack of biological characteristics?
Good question. Since I have not viewed it, I will defer to Hannah. The other wetlands area, the small one that was identified by the applicant's rep just now.
Okay.
Okay, I'm not asking you. That's what
Oh,
you're
yes,
talking about?
yes, the
Okay.
two,
Because the only two referred to is the vernal pool,
Yes.
potential slash vernal pool, and the wetlands area, small wetlands area that Hannah did view. So biological or physical?
By what, sorry, are you talking about the isolated wetland?
Yeah.
Over there?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I mean, physical characteristics wise, it doesn't hold enough water, in my view,
it doesn't hold for more than 2 months of the year.
right? It's very, very, very shallow depression.
Okay.
Very small. It's kind of like a little, depression that looks like it was kind of carved out a long time ago.
Yeah.
But, you know, less than 600 square feet.
And I'm not questioning your merit in any way. Is it that you didn't observe it being full for more than 2 months? Or is it that you questioned that the depth of the water?
The depth.
Okay.
But that's also something that the peer reviewer could, address,
And then
not the
when,
peer reviewer, the applicant's
Yeah.
consultant.
and when certifying the vernal pool, I was the one who submitted the information. You could hear choruses of wood frogs all over, like in the area that was certified was north of the untraveled portion of Blackstone Street on public land, just to make it clear. And what could be heard were wood frogs from the south as well as the east, in the area potentially being developed.
Just for the record, we can only, as commission members, reviewing this project, review what is being provided for us at this time. We can't arbitrarily look at other parts of the property that's immediately adjacent to it, even if there's resource areas there, until it becomes part of the project review formally, meaning the applicant actually comes to us with an application for developing an area. So the only things we can look at tonight, for example, are those two house lots, because they've come to us for a notice of intent for those two for those two lots. If there's going to be more development, as many people, both neighbors and abutters, may be aware or thinking or heard, or it in fact turns out to be the case, we can't talk about it or review it or speculate about it now because it's not A, legal, and B, appropriate to do so because we just don't know what's going to happen. But these two house lots, yes, we can focus on them. So while you're mentioning other areas, I just want to make sure people understand. We understand there's lots of resources in that area, but we can only look at the two house lots tonight at this time, okay? Just so we're all clear.
And I believe in 321 CMR 53, section 1, I can read it aloud
Mhm.
in the wording of it. My apologies, and I'm sorry, that was 310, not 321. So here it states 310 CMR 10.53, section 1. If the issuing authority determines that a resource area is significant to an interest identified in MGL chapter 131, I apologize, I don't know if that squiggly line is 40, for which no presumption is stated in the preamble to the applicable section, the issuing authority shall impose such conditions as are necessary to contribute to the protection of such interests. So if therefore the coursing of wood frogs was deemed to be, my interpretation of this is that if the coursing of wood frogs coming from that area was deemed to be significant, it would provide the commission, the authority to deem it a possible vernal pool.
Okay. I won't disagree with that because I don't think I would necessarily. You seem to be stating something that both is on the record and from your observations are two factors in there. You heard from frogs and they are a popular species for for vernal pool potentially. But also that in Bellingham, with our bylaws, we have made them more stringent, thank you, that was what I was looking for, than the state bylaws. So in other words, in this particular case, when it's related to vernal pools, we don't have to, at this point in time, prove and certify that that area that we're talking about here on this lot one is a vernal pool. We can just say we think it's a vernal pool, therefore we are affording it right now at this point in time, the protection of a vernal pool. We don't have to have, not that what you're saying isn't helpful, but we don't have to have that at this point in time for this particular location for this vernal pool. Something that's not as delineated or defined, we may or may not decide to do that with, but in this particular case, I think that we have enough evidence and belief that it eventually would be certified as a vernal pool. And so we are, I believe, at this point in time, treating it as a vernal pool, even the applicants putting down potential vernal pool, recognizing and delineating around what they feel is a buffer around, or the bordering perimeter around it. Where that falls with the development project and how that will change things, we'll have to see. But for that part, yes, we recognize this as a potential, not yet certified, but vernal pool.
And my apologies, that is how I was inferring it as well. My wording may not have come across.
No, that'd be pretty good. Anything else you'd like to say?
No, that is all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
for coming.
Appreciate the due diligence.
Yes, definitely. Thank you very much. Anyone else here for this particular project, lot one on Blackstone Street? Any questions, general questions? Is anyone not here for that? Okay, well, I want to make sure everybody has an opportunity if you have a general question now. The hearing process will continue for this project. It's not going to be closed tonight. There's more information for the commission in the process of gathering any applicants. Representative will be approached if we need more information. We also are reviewing some information potentially that's come from other sources, and we'll get back to them on that. So if without any other questions from the commission, yes.
What are we waiting on?
Well, I don't think, I wasn't ready to, at this point in time, without having double checked on a couple of things to finish on it. And the vernal pool question aside, whether we want to do anything up with elimination, you were out the site walk, but Pam, you and Ariane were not. Do you guys have any questions about the site that you want to know about? So it drops away from the road down and ends up lowest point being the vernal pool backside, which may be part of the bigger project and impact wise, but definitely occupies a good size space. One of the biggest ones I've seen actually, vernal pools. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, I just have one question. Mr. DeVoe, were you saying that, you believe that the bottom right corner is also a vernal pool?
I was simply stating that since I could not enter the land, all I could do is listen from the untraveled road that is public property. I could hear the chorusing and overlapping chorus of wood frogs that was continuous. I have a recording of it if the commission would like to hear.
I think we did hear it. We saw some.
There were some
too.
attachments and I saw a video of the fairy shrimp.
Yeah.
But the two sensitive as well.
I just wanted to be sure what you are communicating to us.
Yes,
100%.
I just wanted to make sure, to Hannah's point, who clarified that, if that isolated wetlands was not deemed a vernal pool due to either biologic or physical characteristics.
I think berry shrimp enough to certify a vernal pool regardless of the size.
So that's a different location. So the two on lot one is, I think he was just questioning if that isolated one that I had identified that they didn't have previously, if that was also a vernal pool, and then I identified a vernal pool, and then a vernal pool offsite on commissioned land was certified as vernal pool.
And might I also add that it appears through, what you can see from the street that many of these isolated wetlands are connected during flooding periods, and as fairy shrimp are aquatic organisms who travel via streams, they would have little ability to travel upstream as they're tiny little aquatic shrimp. It could be possible that they land in one of these areas, such as the isolated wetlands, and use it as their breeding grounds,
Especially during 7 inches of rain.
especially during 7 inches of rain. And again, I don't want to harp on this too much, but if it was to be full, if that depression was to be full for more than 2 months of the year and no permanent outlets, then it would meet physical characteristics of a vernal pool. Is there any way to observe it for a 2-month period uninterrupted?
Continuously, no, but intermittently during a period of time, the commission may choose to do so if they feel it's warranted. Again, having not been out there, that's another reason for not wanting to close it tonight, having heard that impression about that isolated one for the first time, I think, or first time that I remember hearing that. It made me want to make sure that we're, giving all due diligence to looking at all aspects of it. And while I'm not, do you have any input, by the way?
So we flagged it. It wasn't even holding water when we flagged it. We flagged it based on hydric soils and vegetation, and that was after a large rainstorm. So
When was?
we flagged it 2 weeks ago or a week and a half ago. It was directly for our site walk. I think we did it on Friday or Thursday of that week. So we saw it very close to when we actually went out and reviewed the larger potential vernal pool, which was holding water at that time. This area wasn't. So in our opinion, it didn't qualify as a vernal pool.
Would
It
you
wouldn't have
estimate
the
that
characteristics.
has approximate measuring 600 square feet, give or take, is about right?
It's tough to tell because it's on somebody else's property and we didn't flag the back side of it. We only flagged the area that would cast a buffer zone onto our site. So I don't know exactly how large it would be, but reviewing it in the field, probably approximately around that area.
Anna, can you bring lot 1 up, please?
My computer. is-
I'm starting this computer issue. Hang on. No, it's just-
Would you like to see this larger site plan?
No, I'm looking at it. I wanted to point a few things out to the audience.
There you go. Want to zoom in or change anything location wise?
Who's controlling? Scroll up to the full light. All right, folks, this is zoom in here. This is lot 1. This is what we're discussing. Can everyone see? The vernal pool, the certified vernal pool that Dr. DeVoe was mentioning is down around here. That's constantly full. The wetland that we're discussing now, scroll up, is in this crotch. Scroll down, drag the drawing up.
There you go. And,
I'm trying.
oh, no, there you go. You go.
Mars.
Oh, that's what.
It's not on.
No, that's not.
Yeah.
Can we get rid of this bar at the top?
Oh, that makes it hard to see stuff.
Yeah.
That's so great. I don't know
Sorry,
why.
guys, just give me 1 second. Okay, all right. Here we go. Happening.
Everyone who loves technology, raise your hand.
There we go.
All right, so this is potential vernal. The wetland we've just been discussing is this piece here. Hannah, what percentage of this is on the lot versus off the lot?
I mean, from when I went out there, it doesn't seem like it seems like it's maybe 50-50, like, or 50
Yeah.
or 40.
Michael, we did not
60.
walk this when we were out. We
Right.
stayed down.
That's what I said.
Down around here.
Right.
This is a lot.
That's one of the things that I mentioned. So
Maybe
This is our lot line here. So the wetland that we flagged is entirely
Oh,
offsite.
okay, yeah, offsite, yeah.
It's just the
Sorry.
buffer that.
It's just the small amount of buffer zone, this little corner here and this little corner that's actually being cast onto our property.
Sorry, I was looking at the wrong.
No
lot
problem.
line.
Nobody saw that. Wait a minute. No.
Okay. Steve? Anything else?
So this being the lot line here
Yes,
along the
it
wall,
follows the stone wall.
I mean, anything else?
just the erosion control is right up hard against 25.
Mhm. Yep, okay.
Just
Yeah,
as a
yes.
kind of a staff comment that I had made the first round was that they have a little bit of room there in the frontage.
To go towards the road with the entire
Yeah.
project.
Yeah, so that was something we talked about during the first, but I don't know if that went anywhere.
Right, as that explored.
I can't speak to that. I don't know the answer, but I can certainly pass on that comment to Lou.
Mhm.
Is that the only thing you'd like to see is potentially the dwelling being shifted to the north on the site plan?
Well, it may make sense because of the vernal pool. And the closest point being within 50 feet, basically, as we've said, to the. From the closest points towards the house is about 50 foot no disturb area. And so moving anything away from 50 foot. When we're at the bylaws at least 50 feet for protection for a vernal pool. If not potentially, if there's a reason to do so, like the line wasn't accurate or I don't think it isn't. But or that the commission decided to try to, for whatever reason, extend beyond 50 feet, which I think they have some, and I want to look into that. I'm not overstepping. Prerogative to do so if they felt it was warranted for protection of the vernal pool.
Would additional mitigation adjacent to the bordering vegetated wetland be enough mitigation, removal of trash, debris to keep the house in the current spot? We were.
What area are you talking about? I know what you described is that clear, but what area, what part of that are you talking about?
Talking about south of the erosion control barrier where we saw the garbage debris right up next to the edge of the vernal pool and the bordering vegetated wetland.
Certainly, we would generally, as a condition for any development project, especially a new house going into an undeveloped lot that has been there for a long time, where people dump stuff, unfortunately, and for some reason they was dumping in wetlands. We would ask that the applicants do that cleanup anyway, but I understand what you're offering to do that as, I can't speak for the commission as to whether that would mean that they wouldn't feel whatever way they feel about being as close as they are to both the 25-foot and the 50-foot lines there for the erosion control and for the impact from, or the buffer for the vernal pool. Commission will have to consider that a little, which is, again, why I'm proposing, unless there are additional questions that we can continue.
Can I ask how the two would be related, removing the trash and then not moving the house?
So the house would be, or removal of the trash would be as mitigation for keeping the house within the 100-foot buffer zone, potentially within 75 feet from the edge of the potential vernal pool. And also it would be helping the habitat right up next to the BVW by removing some of the rubbish that's currently there. Because right now it's, as one of the members said, there's probably 30 tires just in one spot that it's right up, that's reducing the amount of native vegetation that's able to grow there. It's just kind of making that area trashy and not a suitable habitat for some of the species that might be using the potential vernal pool.
So a house with 30 tires in the backyard?
Well, I can't speak to that maybe, but
No.
I would like not to. I'd rather have a nice
It's certainly
habitat back there
economic
right next to a
based on a lot
wetland.
more advantageous to remove tires than to move a house. That's pretty obvious to everybody here.
But I don't think it's either or, you know, like.
Comment made, I think the commission can view that any way they wish to, it's not being proposed, I think, by the applicant's representative on behalf of the applicant every one time. He wouldn't do that, I'm sure, but having heard it, thank you for making the statement. Any other
Michael,
questions?
I would like to explore the 100-foot buffer zone of the vernal pool.
Explore in which way? Physically?
Unbreachable.
Okay, so that's something that the commission will probably want to review, and one of the things that the commission is actually talking a little bit to our legal counsel about. make sure, as well as DEP and the Conservation Commissioner, MACC, thank you, which stands for Massachusetts Association of Conservation Commissioners. They're a resource that we on the commission have. We're members of, well, almost every commission in the Conservation Commission in the state is a member of, and they're a resource for all sorts of things like tricky questions about site developments and so forth. They don't offer a lot of necessarily legal advice, but they do offer very strong environmental advice and precedents and so forth. So we're looking at a couple of things about this lot and this project that are, especially with sensitive areas like vernal pool, right adjacent to the property that's being developed, to make sure that we're doing our due diligence and we're getting all the questions answered. So it's just, this member just asked Steve about making sure we understand what we have the right to protect outside from the vernal pool and what we might or might not, in this case, be able to do so. So I think that, to answer your comment, in response to your comment, I think that we are going to want to do that as well. So I will,
In this situation, nearly the entire house is between the 50 and the 100.
Right.
On lot 2, the 100's well behind the house.
And, well, we can talk about that, but none of the actual house, or it's just a small amount of grading in the actual buffer zone to the wetland
for lot 2.
for lot 2,
Yeah, right.
correct?
Yeah, let's jump to that in this moment. I want to finish up with lot 1. Is there anything else about lot 1?
Chairman.
Yes, sir. 1 second. Is there a commission? Oh, you just point out, okay. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead. Identify yourself, please.
Tina Haynes, 18 Matty Way.
Yeah.
Quick question, as I understand, you mentioned that we're keeping the conversation tonight to the scope of this project,
Mhm.
which is lot 1 and lot 2.
Right.
Is it typical when you're applying for 2 buildable lots to have such disruption of such a large amount of land in one area? The disruption isn't just the flagging and what's been done to perk for septic systems. The pathway that used to go through
The paper
there
road for Black
has
Stone
been extremely widened in the last couple of months. It used to be like a vegetation, pathway could go through. And now you just have clear sight lines down like cars are driving through it. And it's interesting because that's not part of the scope of this project. The lots sit over back on Blackstone Street. So why would there be so much disruption, especially since we're delineating and talking about wetlands?
Okay, well, when we did a site walk about 2 weeks ago, one of the questions I asked the developer who was walking along with us up Blackstone, the paper road Blackstone up the hill away from Matty Way,
Mhm.
was, and he brought it up, was the area had been modified somewhat. He has done with permission of the current property owner to the left as you're going up the hill there, beyond the 2 house lots, some investigative beginning perk tests and so forth for potential another project development, but again, we didn't get into that. I just questioned whether he had permission to do that from the current property owner. He assured me he had written verification that it was okay to do that. As far as the paper road and going Blackstone Street was abandoned years ago by the town, that would have continued on towards Lake Hiawatha there. Well, I'm just stating a general statement. I don't know how legally correctly it was done. That's another thing that's being looked. Yes, I believe it was, and it's been stated that it was and so forth, but we're still, the town planning board is involved in that aspect of it. So this is now becoming an area where what you're asking about is both planning board and somewhat conservation commission
Yeah.
related. So,
Okay,
If
I just
you-
have a concern for conservation, because
Yes,
clearly
because that's something you can see and planning board is.
extreme, it's
Right.
extreme.
Right,
And
okay,
if we
so
have
if-
wetlands,
If you want to, my suggestion is you ask the planning board administrator, Rob, was here.
Mhm.
Via email, or whatever you want to, that make mention of what you noted, that approximately when you noted that it had happened. And ask him if that's okay, if there's any issues with the planning board about it, because providing access through a site isn't something the Conservation Commission would necessarily, in this case, regulate.
oh, okay,
The
even if
impact,
there's a
the impact
wetland.
to, if there's environmental impact to
Yeah.
clearing the road and opening up and so forth.
Well, they also need access to certain areas to do those perk tests.
Right, and
Which
the-
are exempt.
Oh, right, but with heavy machinery?
Oh, yeah, well, they bring in machinery that they feel is appropriate, and sometimes it's regulated and restricted and so forth, and sometimes it may not be. In this case, because that project is not under, the rest of that site is not under review process, all I did was question whether he had access and permission, and he assured me he had written permission from the current property owner for that area back there. He didn't state how much more he's gonna do. However, going up Blackstone Street and paper roads, when I believe it is still under review by the planning board as well as the town, as far as legally, what can be done and developed or not developed by the developer down the road, literally, is something that the planning board can probably better answer and address than I can. So I don't want to overstep.
No,
but
I just had a
agree.
conservation issue.
Absolutely, and it's a very reasonable question. So my suggestion is approach Rob, he's very approachable.
Oh, of
We'll
course.
talk to you and via email or phone call, whatever you choose to do, and hopefully it's not a weather chair. Yes.
Ma'am, are you talking about the widening of what was Blackstone Street?
No, I'm talking about the implied paper road. It
Which
used
was
to be
Blackstone?
very overgrown and just really a pathway through. And now it looks as wide as the dead end of Blackstone.
It's the applicants of the opinion and the- should that project go through, it'll be opened up wall to wall. That's the. I'm not speaking with any knowledge, but when we walked with him, and we're looking at. It was not going to stay as a pathway.
And so there's no concern for conservation or wetlands in that area?
Oh,
how
Because
would you
within
conclude
that, it floods.
oh, we walked across the flooded area there.
Yeah. So I would just.
Right, so
My
because
basic
this is not before the town, before our
Yeah.
commission, we're just speculating as much as you all in the audience, what's happening, what's gonna happen and so forth. Really, the town is talking to potentially the applicant and or developer about the future of that paper road, whether it's gonna be developed or not, turned into a real road. Have a project come off of it eventually, build off of it from one side or the other. Conservation land is primarily to the right as you go up the hill of Blackstone Street, but that yet remains to be determined, so. Hannah?
And that's something I can, as the conservation agent, I can talk with Rob, who's the planner, and we can, have some conversation about that, but it seems like it's kind of a separate issue from this, but if you shoot me
I
an
just-
email.
It's
Yeah.
really related, you live down there, you've
Yeah,
seen things
just
happen, you've got
assume
questions,
that
that's
it
fine.
was Based off of what they have in front of the board, because you're destructing an awful lot of land for
And-
two lots that are touching, so it's just.
Right, so the developer may be doing things that are beyond the 2 lot scope or not,
Gotcha.
we don't know, so,
Gotcha.
so anyway.
Mike, I think
Yes.
he's,
Nice that it looks like a road.
the work she's referencing is for the future project, not these.
Right.
But I will
Mr.
say,
Westbrook.
I did add though, because I had a question that's related to this. The area that where the vernal pool is likely, right, where it crosses over and you got the water on both sides. This is more for me as a learning opportunity here. If that was a path and it went through that wetlands, there's water on both sides and it's opened up to a road. Is that not something, I mean, that's what I'm hearing her
Correct,
commenting, and
correct.
I don't want to use the word complain, but that's what she's commenting on. It was a wooded path. It was opened up in that area that went through the wetlands with the water on both sides. We walked it.
Yes.
And I was
So
under
what's
the
your
impression it was always like that. I didn't know that it
It
was.
would never look like that.
One second, so
Ever.
let me, so what is your question about that? You said we're.
So my question is that in the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission to make comments on when something like that occurs?
I would
That's
say
what
at
I
this
said.
moment, no,
Yeah.
because it's not under review by us right now, so.
Public hearing.
Right, this is a public hearing, so we have to
Okay.
abide by public hearing laws, which basically are, you can't talk about a project when the applicant's not here. You can't talk about it after everybody walks out of the room and the hearing is closed. There are other rules and so forth. In this particular case, though, for both practicality, because it's 740, and we're still in the first hearing on a 2 lot project, we would like to continue to move along in a way that's appropriate. I will state for the record that if, as Don has asked about, and those of you that are familiar with the area and the lower water area and the pond on both sides, the water, when and if that road becomes a developable project, something that comes, it will have to come before the planning board, the conservation commission, maybe zoning, fire department, police department, all the agencies in town will be involved in turning something like that into a real road and making sure it's done right. So we on the conservation commission would absolutely, because there's water within right next to the road, and that's a resource area, we would be involved in it, but it's not yet here.
Yeah.
Because it's not before us, we really are just speculating and frankly wasting your all time here, because what we say that has no effect right now on any of that. But having said that, are there any other questions about lot 1? Because again, I want to try to finish up with this one house lot first and move to the second one. Any other questions? I welcome any other questions. Okay,
Okay.
all right. So I will accept the motion from Ariane, since she's ready to make one. Go ahead. Continue to the next.
What are we continuing to?
Continue the hearing to next meeting. We want to get us more information there.
The 23rd.
Yep.
That's what you
I'm making a motion to continue the hearing to April 23rd at 7 p.m.
seconded by Pam. Any other questions, Karen? After voice vote, all in favor? Opposed? Okay, you know, so this lot hearing is now closed until April 23rd. Says 7 p.m., but if you check the town agenda for minutes, you'll see exactly when it is. Probably will be one of the first ones we hear for that particular one. Yes, good.
I apologize. I did have comments on the two of them combined as it pertains to a larger project.
Okay,
And
well,
you'll see where I'm going with
okay,
this.
well, let's get to lot two and then I'll
Yeah,
let you
that's-
ask
that
the
was my
question.
point.
If it goes beyond the scope too much, I'll pull you back a little bit because we do want to continue on the other hearings after this one. But we will now open the hearing for. Please. 1 second. Let me read my report here.
We're getting some requests to speak on.
I will speak up. Sorry, no horsing. And we'll now go to the continued hearing for a notice of intent for A&R Lot 2, Blackstone Street, map 62, lot 1, which is construction of a single-family home with grading in the 100-foot buffer zone to the BVW, bordering vegetated wetland. Louis Petrozzi is the Wall Street Development Corporation applicant and his representative, I'm sorry.
Tom Schott, Scott Consulting.
Is here, with that. So, okay, go ahead. Tom.
So similar story to the last one, single family house. All of this one, however, is outside of the buffer zone, as you can see. This green line would be our bordering vegetated wetland. This blue is our 25-foot buffer zone. This lighter blue is our 50-foot buffer zone. And then finally, the lightest color blue is the 100-foot buffer zone. As you can see, there's only a minor amount of grading in the actual 100-foot buffer zone. It's right here in this bump out. The erosion control does sprawl down to the stone wall, which is just north of the 50-foot buffer zone, probably right around 55 feet. But there's no actual impervious surfaces or infrastructure entering the buffer zone on this lot. It would just be construction and some minor grading.
Why does the erosion control go down that far?
I believe this
If
to
there's
have
no
a
work
backyard and lawn on the site.
So the grading that you're mentioning is land grading, while it's not impervious like paving it, you are going to be taking what is a wooded area and turning it all into grass?
Correct.
Back there? So how many square feet of grading is that?
I don't know the exact amount of square footage of grading, but the only amount of grading specifically that's gonna be changed. There will be tree removal back here for sure, but the actual land work is this small little section right here. Where my finger's pointing to.
Mhm.
I don't know what square footage, but
Have you identified how many trees will be taken out? Because there are some very large trees in that area, within the 100-foot buffer.
I don't know the answer to that.
That is something sometimes the commission asks for, yes, but-
That was something Don did ask for last time, and Mr. Petrozzi requested a waiver to that.
Counting
But that's,
trees?
yes, but that's something that, you know,
County trees.
so that is
Finding out.
Okay, well, we'll take that under advisement and you can potentially ask. for
I have
more
a
information.
question.
Yes, go ahead.
The method, the means of methods on your, how you're removing those trees. You're not just stump cutting them, right? Because you're turning that whole area into lawn.
I believe that the trunks would be removed, everything. The
So
roots as
you're,
well.
so there's land.
There's gonna be some earthwork, but it's not gonna be, there's gonna be no grading specifically in there. Earthwork to remove trees.
Right. We should see one of them tipped over and just the roof ball was probably 15 feet. Made a big noise when it came down, sure. Steve, questions?
Not at the moment.
Yeah.
I guess my biggest concern would be that the access to the house seems to extend off the property.
You trying to-
Yeah. Is that gonna require an easement of some sort?
Do you know whether, where the driveway goes off the property line and connects to the bottom corner of the curve there of Matty Way technically?
Yep, I don't know the answer to that, but it is outside of the 100-foot buffer zone. I don't think that would be a conservation related question.
Probably within the public way anyway. I don't think an easement would be required.
Okay. We can't have them out planning board.
So the entirety within that red square would be cleared for trees.
No, so just this area within the orange dash. And our property here. The red is the property boundary. Down here is wetland, not gonna be disturbed. So just the area in here would be removed of trees within the buffer zone, and then this area outside of conservation jurisdiction where the house would be going would be removed with trees as well.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, go ahead.
another observation. So if they're gonna seed and lawn up to where the erosion is, any fertilizer that is put on that has then a 10-foot drop into the wetlands over 50 feet.
And with the removal of trees, it's gonna have an effect on the water in that area. That's why I asked for the trees to be counted, because they're large, several large diameter trees, and that has a significant impact on the amount of water that's drawn from the soil in that space,
Also erosion control in general.
and erosion control.
Although there's a stone wall, which some would say would be effective as a potentially part of it, except there's a gap there, at least one. Okay, that's the point made. Okay.
And then just as a staff comment, I think I updated you guys that I went out onto the site again, just because the, flagging that's, to the left there hadn't been included on the plan
To
previously.
the left all the way up the property line or where?
Right here.
That
Okay.
way, just to, check that, because I hadn't had the chance to check it the first time I went out there. And I did notice that across the street, there's the flagging on the conservation land across the street, and that wasn't included on the
Okay,
plan.
we'll make a note to include those on, I don't believe that's within 100 feet of our
It
prop,
is.
is it?
Yeah,
Okay.
I measured.
We will include that on the site plan, we'll make that change.
Tom,
Yes.
on the back of the house, the 296, 298, and 300 elevations. Are
Yes.
those existing or finished?
Those are proposed. The dark lines here are proposed grades.
What's the current grade?
One, right.
The current grade is, there's a 300 up close to the street, and then it slopes down to,
It looks like a 292 to the left of the porch off to the
Right.
side there.
it looks like it slopes down to 296, right along the edge of where the erosion control barrier would be. And then the lowest point would be the 292 on the western side of the property over here. But this would be 296, 298, 300.
So they're building it up to put the house on top of. Or the garage at least. And part of the house.
So the house is gonna be in a bit of a hill.
Yeah.
At the
A
summit.
built up hill, yeah.
Yes.
As well as the driveway on that side, yeah. Yep. Okay. Just for questions, James. Don? Or just a formal one, but. Okay, all right, I will, having had the commission have their chance to ask questions, ask, if anyone in the audience would like to have questions, obviously, I know you do, so, hold on, I can go up, let me just, okay. Good.
With both of these lots having wetlands in the backyards, will there be a requirement to do some sort of, maybe wood fencing to buffer that? I know that they've had, people on Blackstone Street do that before when they put in a new septic system, that wood split fencing. Will that be?
Fencing or palisade type fencing, which you?
No, that's split, like.
Split rail, so something
Split rail.
to mark it, not to. block
Correct,
it off.
so that the, new future owners of that do not encroach on the wetlands. I know it's
So,
been done in
In
recent.
in answer to your
cases.
question, in many projects, including something as simple as somebody putting a new septic system in the backyard where they've been there for decades.
Correct,
We often require, as part of the commission's order of conditions, that badges which are provided by HANA free of charge for residents and developers, which indicate no disturbed area, are posted at whether it's on the fence, on individual posts, sometimes it's on trees, it's whatever's determined to be appropriate for the particular site that we're talking about, to mark exactly what you're talking about, so that future property owners, not the current developer necessarily who knows this, and someone down the road, or two people, three people owners later, knows that that's not an area you can dump leaves and grass clippings and so forth. It's a resource area, because people just don't know or
They
don't
don't
care.
yeah.
And putting the badges there at least gives us the ability to say that's an area that was marked. Hopefully, badges removing, but yes, so that is something that could be done. We have not yet specified that level of order conditions. We,
I wasn't sure if that was the new standard, because I know that somebody on Blackstone Street was
Wherever the-
required to do the split fencing.
wherever the commission deems that it's helpful, appropriate, or necessary because of past evidence of dumping or an indication
Well,
that
we're
this is
talking
not.
about tires, so we
Right.
probably should do it.
We're tired of hearing about tires. believe me.
Yeah.
But we're on a roll, so let's keep going. Okay, anybody else? Thank you for your point. Okay.
Do I have to state my name again?
No, we know. Unless you're changing it.
Not yet. So a couple points just about them as a whole. And I'm gonna cite 321 CMR.
Could you speak up a little bit? They can't hear you there.
My apologies. I'm gonna cite 321 CMR 10, which I'm not sure if you guys typically deal with that. So in 321 CMR 10.16.
Which is a state regulation, just for the rest of the audience. What are you saying some numbers for?
Yes, my
Okay.
apologies, which talks about the natural habitat and endangered species protection. So the total project as a whole is gonna encompass 11 homes as far as we're aware. And so that would, proposing these two lots and voting on these two would then therefore violate section 16 of 321 CMR 10, which is related to project segmentation. So therefore, it should be proposed as a whole and done jointly with MISA. What's my interpretation?
Why don't you tell people what MISA stands for? since I know you know.
MISA is the Massachusetts Endangered Species Act. Because there is a portion of this, which I believe these two lots don't fall into. I haven't seen like a cross-sectional, or not a cross-sectional, but an overlay of these maps with regard to the priority habitat zoning. But the additional homes and paving of Blackstone Street would encroach on this area. So if referencing section 10.16, it would violate that because this is segmenting the project.
And so you learned about that, so thank you.
And from-
Good points.
And from, I did a quick search of public records with MISA, and I could not find anything in Bellingham filed with them. So I don't believe there has been a joint filing.
Right, we're just recently been made aware that it has something we've talked a little bit about, we're gonna have to look into some more.
Okay.
So that's a very good point. So just for the information, again, those of you that are interested in this particular project in this area of development, potentially down the road, there is a area of endangered species in the area, box turtles, eastern box turtles specifically, which have been identified by the National Heritage. So there is protection offered to this species because it's endangered species, and that may impact the development down the road, whether it's these two house lots, the potentially, as you said, 11, although I've not seen or heard anything about anything more than these two. So I'm not saying you're wrong about the 11. It could be more, could be less, could be something different. But whatever other development might happen in this area, and that also extends back, just for your information, because the rest of you that know the area, to the North Street and the fields there off of North and Blackstone Street, that field that has recently been approved for development of a limited cul-de-sac with some townhouses on it. That was up for quite a while, and then some of you look a little familiar, may have been here during that hearing process. But that area is also part of that endangered species habitat. There's some wetlands off to the side of that, which is a habitat area that has been identified as supporting potentially box turtles. So there is protection offered for that, and that makes the project involve another layer of protection and another agency that gets involved in this, and more reviews that happen, and that's just part of what happens with these projects sometimes. So that's good that we're evaluating that. Anything else you'd like to offer?
A couple more points, one which pertains to the potential vernal pool that was mentioned in the Lot 1 discussion. So per the Army Corps of Engineers, recommend that only 25% of that area of so my apology, the 750 to 1,000 foot radius surrounding it be taken or developed.
Seven hundred and fifty foot to 1,000 foot radius, and that's
Yeah.
Army Corps, you said?
Yeah, that was cited by the BSC peer review, which that's referred to as the critical terrestrial habitat. I'm looking at you, guys, if you would know.
I'm not sure what the peer review.
This was mentioned in the peer review for Prospect Street.
Separate that project.
It
Oh,
it is a
okay.
separate project, but I believe the principle still applies.
I don't even.
Why don't you do this, just so that, and I'm confused by it too a little bit. When you get a chance to write that down, shoot us an email about
Yeah,
that in detail. So that while we continue to have a review of both these lots and looking for both the legal and the environmental and some other aspects that the commission members have mentioned, we make sure we cover all the bases and get all the questions answered. If that's pertinent, relevant, and legally applicable in some way to this project, we'll consider that, whether the principal stands on it or not, or whether it's something that is fine for that site, but not appropriate for this one. It's always helpful to have somebody like yourself who's as interested in this and cares as much, bring us this kind of questions and ask the kind of questions now at this part of time in the planning process before everything's built and done.
Yeah.
So thank you for doing that. But yeah, that would do.
Just for the audience, I don't believe the Army Corps of Engineers has the authority to enforce these, although they just provide recommendations. Although their recommendations are typically held pretty close to the heart. And I'm sorry, were you gonna say something?
Oh, but, so in that case, we wouldn't be allowed to rule based on the recommendations. We
that's
kind
fair.
of have to go by the law.
That's fine. And my last point is, and might have just roll with me here, that the newest vernal pool to be certified in the town of Bellingham, so no question. I assume there's no question of its validity and certification. And part of that vernal pool does fall into that natural habitat, I always mess this up, the priority habitat for rare species. So part of the vernal pool falls into that area. And within 321 CMR 10, section 18, subsection 5, which I've emailed to all of you, it does state that there is a 300 foot area which surrounds the vernal pool, which if there was to be any development of that area, I believe would have to go through the Department of Fisheries and Wildlife. And I spoke with somebody on the phone from NHESP, which is the National Habitat and Endangered Species Program, who stated even if the development itself is not within the confines of that area, of the priority habitat area, and the vernal pool is, then that 300 foot rule still applies all around it. And it, again, doesn't matter if that area is within, and if you were to look at this lot 2, that would fall into that 300 foot area, which surrounds the vernal pool.
So you're referring to the vernal pool across Blackstone Street, not on this side, just to be clear.
Yeah.
Because they were thinking of a vernal pool down behind lot 1.
Right, which does
Not the
not
pool
fall
we're
in the
talking about.
priority habitat.
Okay. All right, that's helpful, thank you.
And
Hey, someone recently put in a resignation, Conservation Commission, right?
I can't. So we will, take all that information, but anything else you'd like to add?
that was all I had this time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir.
Joseph Neville, 7 Matty Way. Just would like to confirm, it looks like lot 2 extends beyond the break from Blackstone paved to Blackstone paper road. What are the plans for the road extension to accommodate lot 2, if any, or is it gonna stay a
If
dirt
you look
road?
closely, right where it says street on the
Yeah.
curve there, that's where the driveway appears to be correct me if I'm wrong. That's where the applicant's going to have the driveway come out. So technically, they're connecting to an existing road right at the bottom curve there of what is, I believe, on paper maps in town, still referred to as Matty Way, where it curves and goes north or whatever direction west. So I think they're gonna connect to an existing road, because the applicant was clear with us when we did sidewalk that the reason that they were proceeding with these two applications was because they could connect to an existing road. And he also confirmed that Blackstone paper road, Blackstone, the dirt path road is not what he was.
Okay, so there's no plans to pave or extend it at this time?
Not at this time for these two lots, I believe, correct, Tom?
That is correct, yep.
Thank you.
No. Anything else? Any other questions? Anything else unclear?
My apologies, I just wanted to clarify one thing with the project segmentation that I was referring to. Within the section 10.16, it does give the Conservation Commission of municipalities which have significant area of priority habitat, the authority to bring in MISA.
On their own. if they want to. Fine. Okay, that's helpful to know. Thank you. That's also something you might want to add to that email that you're going to work on. Just to make sure we got everything covered. Yes, we are looking into additional issues with this one, like we are the first lot. We're talking to some legal counsel and some resources that I mentioned for Mass Association Conservation, as well as DEP, to make sure we've got everything, all the questions answered, all the questions about borders and that, BBWs and proposals and so forth answered. So if the commission knows that that is the case and doesn't have any additional questions. And anyone else out there doesn't have any additional questions? Hannah, any other administrative comments? Okay. I will entertain a motion to continue this hearing as we did the first one.
We vote on the requested waiver.
Gather a little more information since there's no pressure to do that right now. You mind? I don't. think-
Well,
yeah.
the
I mean,
applicant
I think
requested
you
a
can
waiver.
request, I think you can just request more info, like continue to request that information. I'm not sure procedurally how you would handle that
So the request to waiver that you're looking.
for the
Yeah.
trees.
Oh, for the tree.
Tree
Oh,
count.
yes. Sorry, I forgot about the
Ask
tree.
them
one.
to
Yes,
count-
yes, yes.
At least count or mark trees and.
And that was that presented at the last meeting?
They,
Or was it just,
John.
I did,
John
and I-
asked-
well, you asked about it,
Right.
but the applicant's portion, Lou's portion, was his response in writing? Was it just a verbal?
Yes, it was in writing.
Okay, yeah, well, if you put it in writing, and do we have a time limit on waivers requests? Up to the commission.
No, I just figured if we made the decision now on the waiver on
I
the
mean-
record, then we're essentially saying, no, we're not going to approve a waiver, go do it. As opposed to continuing it and then putting it as part of an order of conditions, because I think we'd like to know it before we issue the order.
right,
Oh, sure.
I agree with James.
So you're thinking that if we say no, if the commission says no to the
Wrote
waiver,
us a letter requesting the waiver, if we vote and say no,
give us the tree
give us
count,
a tree count.
then you feel that does what?
Tells him that we're not going to accept that waiver from.
Oh, the waiver. I thought you were saying that we were going to accept property.
We're
No.
wanting the tree information.
Right, yes. Okay, so it's up to the commission. If that's what you want to do, that's fine. Just make a motion.
I believe James has. I'll second it.
Okay, so we have that clear enough. Howard be listening. Okay, you're clear enough if you.
do we want to take a vote?
Oh, we do, we're done. Since we have a motion in a second, I'm going to open for another discussion on the motion. So we have a motion to deny the waiver,
Waiver.
request a waiver to not have to do a tree count on lot 2 specifically of this application, and I have
Was
to
it
go. quest-
what?
Yes, it's lot 2. Just the lot 2, it's my time. Any other questions, discussion?
Would it be an I vote if we deny it or nay?
We're
The
saying
motion.
Yes to deny.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes would be a denial, so the motion is to deny, so if you say yes, you're denying it. I'm sorry, just for, is there an informational question? Otherwise, we need to vote.
Yeah, I was just wondering if the townspeople are able to add petitions to the vote.
Petitions to the vote? No, I don't think so. I'm not sure procedurally enough to know that we can, so I don't want to mess it up and say we can.
No,
I'd
no,
rather
it's the safer answer.
Yeah, I basically say, right. Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so unanimous vote, denial of the waiver request by the applicant for lot 2 to not have to count trees. So he's got to go count the trees.
Is there a certain DBH size requirement you would like for that?
Hannah knows the standard that we usually ask for at
I
minimum.
think it's outlined in the, I think it's outlined in the bylaw.
Was it 10 or 7?
I'm not sure.
I don't remember, it was either 8 or 10.
How about,
It was-
we get back to, we know for sure, we'll definitely let you know, because you wanted it, and you need to tell them.
Yeah.
But we'll give you an accurate description of it. I think it's certain height, and we have something somewhere documented.
I think it's in the bylaw.
Yeah, okay.
think it is.
Well,
I know it is.
Yeah, let's on know. Okay. All right, so I will take a break for a second to tell you that we are,
We haven't completed
right, well, we're gonna continue the meeting, that's right, good point. We need to have motion to continue this hearing for lot 2 to the evening of April 23rd at 7 PM.
So moved.
Well, wait a minute, too many.
Second.
Okay, Pam first, and Ariane second, thank you. Any other discussion here? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, so this hearing will now be is closed and will be continued to the evening of April 23rd at 7 PM again, one right after the other. Probably at the beginning. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Tom.
I mean, you're not representing Lou for this next one off Lake Street?
No.
Oh, sorry. You were halfway at the end. And I also don't want to assume maybe you're here for something else. Okay, so,
Mr. Chair,
I will give
may I
it.
make a comment? Sure. Everyone, thank you for your interest. Please attend the planning board meetings on this.
And we're not dismissing you by any means. If you want to hang around as long as you want to, that's fine. The next item on the agenda is the construction of, off of Prospect Hill Village, off of Prospect Street. So if you're here for that, that's what we're going to be hearing next. If you're not here for that, you were here for the first two, and you're happy that you've heard everything we want to hear, please feel free to depart. And thank you again for coming. We love it when people come in and show interest. Please check the town website for updates on meetings and agendas. Anybody else that's in the back of the room who wants to move up, just so you can hear better? I know it's a little hard to hear sometimes. Feel free, come right up. We're not shy. We soft spoken, but we're not shy.
You know, there's nothing requiring. No, there's. Some guidelines. Whatever was taken out is replaced.
Not the arbitrary policy. Or,
Oh, I thought you were the bylaw.
no, I was talking about the
Oh,
bylaw.
I can't find it.
Oh, okay.
I'm not seeing.
Oh,
In between policy, maybe if there isn't something in the bylaw,
Well,
we'll
the
add it to
policy
policy.
is something I made up.
Well, no, we can go by standard. We go out there and stick that in there. You guys want that?
Right, and I know I read the standard somewhere, it was either eight or 10 pages, yeah.
Something, but I
Oh, yeah.
think so sorry.
Okay, I know one of the members stepped out for a moment for pretty break, but we will start the process. I think she's okay with that. She knows what we're doing. She'll be back in a moment. Get things moving along since we're it won't be 1 o'clock, 1 hour in so far. I will open the continued hearing for notice of intent for off Lake Street / Prospect Street, Prospect Hill Village, which is a construction of a 156, that's in 149, so some say the number right. Unit townhouse development, which will impact bordering vegetated wetland, bank, land under water bodies and waterways, bordering land subject to flooding and riverfront area. Louis Petrozzi, Wall Street Development Corporation is the applicant. Paul McManus from Ecotech Inc. is the applicant's representative. Well, welcome again. Thank you. So, one minor point, and I don't know if it's on our end or yours, but it says construction of 160 unit townhouse. I just read something in reading some of the stuff on our portal that the applicant has specified, I think 149 in the form of X many, however many, the number 49 or whatever. It'd be nice if we have an accurate number, because not that somebody's gonna call you on it, but if somebody might say, is the number changing because the scope of the work's changing, and if it's not, so be it. If it is, then it should be whatever the current number is based on the plans. Okay, so before we open up to this, I'm gonna ask you to give me a second here. Ask the commission to, having given some thought to an email I sent out, a very short one the other day, asked first off if you looked at it and had given it a little thought. And I'm gonna ask you for your opinions, input before we proceed with hearing any detailed private project. You understand why I started. bear with me. Let me read something, I just want to make sure. Hang on a second, let's play that here. So, I found out emails. Said I'd like to get your input, in advance of Wednesday's meeting, I'd like each of you to consider the current Prospect Village project that we have been reviewing. I intend to ask the commissioners for their opinion during the open meeting of whether they want to continue to allow the applicant to bring us various sections of the project that he wants, and this is my quotes, direction / input and feedback, end quote, from the commission on, in order for them to continue to proceed to develop the project plans and scope. As has been stated during the open sessions by me, the past practices of the commission when reviewing notice of intent projects was always to require a full project scope / plans be provided for review by the commission and or peer review before starting the process of responding to any specific aspects of the project. In the past, the commission has approved a working subcommittee to work with developers / applicants outside of the open hearing process with strict limitations on the scope of technical materials being reviewed, with the goal being to facilitate the review process without foregoing any of the required formal review and evaluation / approval process by the commission. In that case, the project was only reviewed by the working subcommittee after a complete set of plans and scope of work was provided for the entire project. So I asked you all to give that some thought, because before we proceed with this project, which is a very large project and has been under review for a while already, with various things being discussed and reviewed, including a small working group that did work on some technical aspects between the peer reviewer, Anna, who else was there?
Brian.
Rob, and Pam was there. Thank you. So we had some representation from the commissions as well as the agent and peer review. You were there, right, Paul? Yeah, Paul was there. Was anybody else from your group there? Mr. Petrosi. Mr. Petrosi, okay, the application itself. So while that was a approved one-time meeting, at that point in time, one time, with potential if we had more, but review of some technical aspects, it was very limited scope. However, at this point in time, I think it's important for the commission to assess whether the direction that is still being indicated very clearly in the email that the applicant, which I'll read to you in a second, there's a 1 or 2 sentence thing from Lou that I'll make sure you all have seen, because you didn't show that. So his response to.
I'm not sure.
Oh, is it, okay, I'll read it anyway, it wouldn't hurt to read.
There's been a lot.
Yeah, there's been a lot of communication. So before we continue down this path that we've started down for this particular project, I think it's important that we decide as a commission whether we want to basically start a new precedent, which could become a precedent legally, who knows, I'm not sure about that part of it. But certainly a functional precedent of reviewing a project, and I'm not gonna use the word segregation because I've been told by the council that's not the right word to use, but a project in pieces. With the goal, with the reason being only the applicant's choice to do this, and request to do this, that it makes it easier for them to develop the project in a way that is economically, time-wise, and other factors valuable to them and important for them. It is not, however, what the commission has been doing, what I believe conservation commissions in general are tasked to do, and the methods that they're tasked to do it. I believe that what I just stated as the general practice that we've done in the past, I believe is very consistent with what every other conservation commission that is legit, and I'm saying they're all legit because I don't know any of them are. And that's terrible for any town, so, yeah, does for reviewing projects. So in this case, I don't think that it's a path that I personally would like to see us go down, but I want to get input from the commission. This is conservation, Bellingham Conservation Commission, not my commission. It's the commission. So I want to get your inputs. If you have questions about what I mean or something, to be clear before you speak, or as you're speaking, feel free to let me know. But I really feel before we move forward in any way, we provide ourselves with a clear sense of what we want to do or don't want to do going forward. So I'm just gonna, I know you got your hands raised, so Don's not raising his, so I'll start with you, Ryan, and I'm with you. Go ahead,
To
Ryan.
me, it seems like we're providing free consulting services to applicants when we're volunteers and we don't have a lot of time to be doing that. It also takes away the amount of time that we can spend on the other projects that we have, because Bellingham's like 50% wetlands, so we got a lot of projects every time, and we have performance standards, the state has performance standards. If you don't meet the performance standards with your project, it's very unlikely that it's gonna happen. There's certain waivers that we can grant, but you have to make it clear, like, here's where we meet the performance standards, here's all the data that supports that, and then here's where we're asking for a waiver, and then take it from there.
Okay. Okay. Yeah,
I just wanted to give my input from the meeting that I went to as well. I was very interested to hear it. I think that area of wetlands that Lou is proposing the project on is an area that is of some importance to the wetlands of Bellingham. And I mainly wanted to understand and listen to the conversation between the two reviewers, because I am the newest commission member. I did learn a lot. I do want to state I didn't give any input or direction. I didn't want to speak for the commission. I didn't want to speak about the laws. I asked a few clarifying questions, but I agree with Ariane that I think it would be giving an unfair preference to any applicant if we were to be spending a lot of time helping guide them. I'm not an architect and I don't, I am trying to learn the best I can to be on this side of the Conservation Commission, but I do not want to be in charge of what an applicant provides to us.
Steve?
The working meetings I sat on with WSP are very different than what has unfolded here. We went with peer review, sat down, and it was an open dialogue in which Hannah Crawford and myself asked questions. This project has presented on a number of occasions multiple scenarios different from another. So there's, in my mind, a separation between a working meeting and this, and I think what was drawn apart was that experience or the history of that working meeting, because it was known. I would like to see a decision made by the applicant as to what direction he wants to go. And no more of the, well, we could do this, we could do this, we could do this and this, because there are sometimes 6 or 7 options. It is creating, at this point, as I sit here and I'm looking at drawings, which way are we going? Or which way is not we, which way is the project going? Because in order to give intelligent feedback, we would have to take the time, picking up on Ariane, to review every single one of those suggestions in its full depth.
Not here to do environmental analysis.
And that is not a reasonable approach.
1 second, we give James a shot, then I'll come back to you. Okay.
I just wanted to add on to that, not related to our board, but a certain company, who I don't know at all, decided to do something similar.
They still can't hear you back.
A certain company that I am not affiliated with decided to do something similar once, a while ago. And then, they had like a meeting, and then they thought they were done because they talked it out with the Conservation Commission, and then they filled in some floodplains without getting their FEMA permit or their Chapter 91 permit.
So creative problems.
Yeah, because they thought they were done. And then I'm sure the Conservation Commission in that town probably thought they were done too, and thought that maybe they each thought like, oh, they know to get that permit, and then the applicant thought, oh, they would tell me if I needed to get that permit. So it's like, what's really the point,
Okay, so, James.
Yeah, my comment's really gonna be exactly what I said last time we talked about this, where you're gonna bring a project in that it is, you want it to be permittable and it's what you're proposed. I think Lou said it last time, he knows the bylaw and he knows the WPA, so he ideally should know what would be a permittable project. So you bring that proposal in and we review it as proposed, you've designed it to avoid impacts to resource areas. Where you cannot, you minimize that impact, and where you cannot do that, you mitigate for that impact. And we've, like Steve has said, I'm like actually confused about what the process is. And we've also had multiple peer reviews now, separate documentation that is just making it even more confusing. So I think having the applicant come in with, this is the proposed plan. And then if we have like some serious negative feedback to that, we'd usually elicit comment from the applicant and say, can you come up with a creative solution that doesn't have as much impact? And if they can't, then they can't. That's how this works. Sometimes you can't avoid an impact and you mitigate for that impact. And that's what we would review. And if that's appropriate, we'd permit it.
Right, we go. Okay, thank you, that's helpful.
So I have a couple points. First, I'm really relieved to hear that I'm not the only one who's been confused by this. Because we don't meet and discuss things offline. And without exaggeration, I spent over 4 hours today. My own time going through all the different proposals that he's made over time, trying to make sense over the, and how things were evolving with the most recent drawing that he gave and all the other information that we have. And I find it totally confusing in my mind, looking at things in these, smaller parts instead of looking at it as a whole. It's incredibly confusing. And it's hard for me to step back and see how does this one piece and the questions and things we're being asked affect that other piece. And so I'm an advocate of having one complete proposal presented to us and we can look at it in its entirety, digest it. Spending an untold number of hours, that was just today, never mind everything else that we've all spent reviewing these. It's incredibly burdensome. And I welcomed your question to us, because this isn't the right way to do it. It's not fair to him. It's not fair to us. It's not fair to the town. Because it's not fair to you, because I don't understand, we don't always understand what's the impact, the implication of this, when you're only looking at little pieces. So.
And Lou is clearly sensitive to the finances required for peer review.
Right. And while that is a consideration that I don't want to be flip about because it is money and it's the applicant's money. Just for the record, for all of you, the peer review process is something that we have, as state regulations say, that we, the Conservation Commission, have the right to request a peer review, which means somebody who's a wetland scientist in this case, who's certified and is a resource that we choose, is hired by Bellingham, paid for by the applicant, a reasonable fee for services rendered, which include walking the site, marking out property boundaries for resource areas, reviewing issues that may have been concerned of various types. I won't go into all the examples, but looking at all that on our behalf. They come back with a report. They address issues that they see based on the plan that they have reviewed. It often involves lots of hours of looking at things, looking at the plans in detail with an expertise level that we on the commission do not frankly have. We also don't have the time to do as much. I mean, there's a lot of engineering, a lot of other calculations and so forth that are reviewed as part of either the engineering process or the environmental process, but that's reviewed for it. The applicant pays for that and they are required to pay for it by law. If they refuse to pay for it, then we have the right to say the project can't proceed because we don't have the information that we need to make an informed decision. When our decisions are based on two things, the law, regulations, environmental regulations, which is the law, and the science, the wetland science that is backed up by, in this case, whether Paul representing the applicant or our consultants or our own knowledge or other resources that we gather to make it based on factual things. So we may not like a project that's going on in town, development project or something, but we on the Conservation Commission are supposed to, and we're sworn to be impartial about that. as much as we possibly can be, being human beings, and to follow those two guidelines to make a decision. And most of the time in town, an applicant or the project lends itself to being resolvable and doable because they either meet the guidelines, and as some of the members just said, or they modify the plan so that it does meet the guidelines, or we provide, in some cases, a limited relief or a waiver of some sort because there's no other way to get things done, and projects proceed. Bellingham does not have a record of stonewalling projects and being a really hard place to get some development happening in town. If you live in town, you know a lot of development happens. We do our part to make sure it's done properly from the environmental aspect. Planning board tries to do their part from the planning aspect, which could be noise, sound, lights, traffic, a lot of things that we don't regulate at all. But together, hopefully, come up with things that minimize the impact in a negative way to the town and get the project done right and hold the developers accountable for doing it the way they're going to be required to do it. Not just at the start when the project's approved, but during the course of it, people like Hannah check on projects, make sure environmental and erosion controls are in place, et cetera. So the commission in this particular project, which is a very large project, you heard, under 56 townhouses down at the south end of town there, is also in an environmentally sensitive area and one that we want to make sure is treated right and impacts environmentally the areas that we regulate, the area to the minimum impact possible if it's approvable in the form that it's going to be presented. I'm going to read one section here because this is an email from Lou on April 3rd, and part to Hannah. I'll just read part of it. That's very, it's a very short email. It's an update on the proposed plans for Prospect Hill. Talking about soil testing that they've done recently with BSC as part of the stormwater management system for the planning board. Planning board reviews the stormwater. We review other aspects of the job. It's anticipated a complete set of the revised plan will be available next week for review. This is the part that's critical. In the meantime, however, input from the commission is necessary in the areas noted previously, i.e. filling isolated wetland replication, riverfront area, et cetera, et cetera. It would be my expectation that the commission, with input from BSC, that's our consulting company, has the peer review company, has the necessary information to either approve or deny those aspects of the plan. Without a decision on those issues, the plan would remain in limbo until those issues have been decided. It is hoped the commission will make a decision at the next meeting on April 9th. Thank you, Luke.
There is no the plan.
Right, so that's point number one. We've received portions, and at each stage, as you all have already done, we've been asked by the applicant, hey, what do you think about this? I could do this or this, which would you prefer? That's a very piecemeal approach, and by making any kind of statement or decision, we potentially cause problems down the road when we see another part of the project which has suddenly been come before us, and that has negative impact on something that we had said was okay or not okay, which we haven't done. We haven't given any approvals or denials or anything other aspects of that. Yes,
Is he asking what our opinion is on those things?
he's expecting that we would have a decision throughout the
I have
entire
a
project.
decision.
He's asking, his expectation, as stated in the email, was that by tonight, we would have, as he put it, those issues would be decided, either approve or deny those aspects of the plan, which are very large aspects in filling isolated waste, replication,
Yeah,
et cetera.
okay.
So these are decidable. There's also piecemeal. So if you're looking at portions of the project and you're giving partial approvals or even guidance, which could be interpreted later legally as by the applicant or as someone else as, well, you said I could do this, so now I'm going to do that because that favors me, and that means that's the next thing I just brought up to you. You can't say no to that either because but it wouldn't be appropriate. So you're setting precedent. So I think if I'm hearing from the commission enough, and there's no other question from the commission, that what we want to do is make it clear to the applicant that what we are looking for is a complete project proposal presentation from him. You're hearing this, okay, Paul? Okay, I don't think it's a shock to you. That while he may not agree that that's the process that should happen or could happen or ought to happen, that is the process that the commission has had and has, even though we've been working on this project for a while, it's been before us for more than a couple of hearings. I have stated repeatedly, for the record, that I had issues about looking at parts of it, and we had asked questions about the fact that this was not an entire project, it was options 1 of 6 and so forth, 2 of 6, during presentation portions of things. I think that we will draft a response to Lou that formally, just so you don't have to make notes. That will reflect that and say that we want a complete project presentation for this project. We'll wait to hear what his plans are to do that. At that point in time, because the scope of that is beyond, perhaps, maybe not, beyond what BSC, the peer reviews have been approved by him to fund and to do for the work, that scope may have changed, may change, because it's gonna be potentially the whole project instead of pieces that we've heard up to this point.
The
And-
cheapest way or the least amount of money that you would spend with peer review is meeting all the performance standards, making your plans clear and whole, providing a complete set of plans and providing them all the documentation that they need to do what they need to do.
And that should be understood, the applicant is more familiar with projects, it's not they're a new person to this process, and Paul will advise them, I'm sure, very, very confidently, as to what he needs to do to make that happen. We will wait to hear what his plans are to do that, and until then, I don't think it's fruitful to look at any particular parts of aspects of this project until we know that we are seeing the entire project, and then we can determine whether additional peer review is needed in order for us to review the science part of it as well as anything else, or not. Maybe it will be complete and everything will be then. BSC would at least be able to say, now we see the whole project, now everything's covered, but we don't know that yet, so I'm not going to say that that's going to be the case.
I mean, if he wants us to vote on that, we could, but I don't think he's gonna like my vote.
Well, I don't think, I'm looking for a vote per se. I want to make sure I have the understanding and backing of the commission to proceed in that way, if that's the way that you all want to do. That what I'm proposing to state to the applicant is what you all need me to state in so many words. And that we would then just basically continue the hearing. So I don't know if we would do beyond that. Yes, Paul.
I think I can perhaps help and give you some comfort. You have before you a complete plan, has a beginning, middle, end. And there are some minor changes that are happening with respect to the engineering. With the review by BSC, by Paul Knapik's colleagues down the hall on the engineering side. But they don't really affect footprint. It's a matter of, tweaks to drainage system and that sort of thing. The real only uncertainty that has been before you is the issue of the proposed filling of the IVW. The plan does show that. In order for that to be approved, that would need a waiver under your bylaw. I've said that very clearly in my performance standards analysis. I've also included in there my rationale for why I think not only that you can implement that waiver, but that it makes sense for you to do that because, and I'll let your peer reviewer put his opinion on this as well. But my opinion is that the areas that we propose to fill are remnant, poorly developed. I think Paul even said he questioned whether they even had 50% wetland vegetation and therefore a resource area at all. I felt that they were just over the cusp or I wouldn't have flagged them. But they're areas that have, because of their history of poor development, have minimal function. We have the opportunity and propose and provide details, which Paul made some comment on, which is helpful, but provide details and specifications for mitigation for that on a 2-to-1 area of replication. So as I said, that is an area where you have essentially unlimited discretion, yay or no, yay or nay, whether in your opinion you think that the waiver is justified and it meets the standard of essentially a net benefit, even though it doesn't meet your normal numerical standards. So that is really the issue. So I would say to you tonight that you have a plan, you have the plan. Now, you, as I said, you have at your discretion the ability to say, no, we won't grant you this waiver, in which case, my opinion is you cannot approve the plan under your own bylaw without approving that waiver. If you were to do that, then we, of course, would have to take that denial, go back to the drawing board and, you know, redraw the plans, and they would come back to you. So the intent really has been to avoid that potential, you know, waste of your time, frankly, if it was a situation where, you know, you were not to be inclined to issue that waiver. Again, my opinion is that the waiver makes sense. But it's your opinion guided by your peer reviewer, I'm sure. But you do have the plan. It's the plan that Paul Knappich reviewed in his letter of April 7, I think, just a couple days ago. He made some comments there, which I think are helpful. I was hoping we would go through them quickly because we really don't have any disagreement with any of them.
Based on the email, I hear what you're saying, Paul, I appreciate that, and I remember the section, because I did look at it for the waiver and your justification for improving it, the improvement and so forth, the way you had laid out there, and I saw Paul's comments too, but seeing Lou's comments here in an email in his words, I don't have the same confidence that we really do have from the applicant, not from you, but from the applicant's point of view, really a firm plan, because as his words are, if we don't approve or deny those aspects, which include, as you said, the filling, but also wetland replication, riverfront area, and I don't know what et cetera means, but he put that in there. So it sounds like there's additional things. He was talking about roadways at one point in time going one way versus other. Well, I can go this way. I could fill in this isolated wetland over here versus, or potential for whatever, isolated wetland, and it'd be more benefits put over there. Tell me what you want to do. And we never told him officially, so I don't know. It seems like he's wanting us to tell him otherwise. He says he can't decide things, which makes me think he has other options he would have to do, which means there's an alternative plan or not that may or may not have been Fred. So again, having not heard what you just said now, but having seen what he had put in writing, my feeling is that if he and you have a set of plans that is the plan that you're gonna go forward with, it's either not complete or it hasn't been presented in a way that the commission understands it to be a complete project, because almost every member here is confused about what it is you guys want to do for a project. That's not a good thing to just be having us making decisions about. So,
Like, right here, the plan that we have tonight is just part of the project.
right.
I was gonna ask, what is the purpose of this? It's sheet 20 of 43, it's one. It has an addendum date on it. I'm not seeing any flagged addendums. What changed? Am I supposed to take the old and the new and play Where's Waldo here for a while?
Hold them up to the light.
That was that provided by you guys? I don't know if it's just spot. Maybe you didn't provide that.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Did you provide that sheet 20 to Hannah? Because she gave it to us in the
The
portal.
one that's up on the
Yeah,
screen.
sheet 20, Hannah had, because she had questioned, where, you know, where the remainder of the sheets, you know, she was expecting the whole 20 some odd pages. And Lou's comment was sheet 20 was the one where, you know, there was a significant change proposed.
Meaning there might have been other pages that had less significant changes, and he interpreted that to mean that he didn't have to provide them.
Well, there are other changes, as I said, there are engineering tweaks, I'll use the word, that are in process with the peer reviewer. So those pages are being finalized. The layout and the footprint and the proposed wetland impacts and the proposed mitigation, those are not changed. Those are not being changed.
Get a complete set of.
Yeah, I'm just on this one sheet, the exit out onto Lake Street, as far as I was just a concept. When
Was
did
one
that
of the options he
become,
was providing.
yeah, when did that become finalized?
I think they always was.
There were
Yeah, the
there were
three.
some versions to loop it
You
back.
remember, this was back late last year when we got
Well,
the
there were.
fixed, like alternatives of.
Well, I was gonna say, maybe part of the problem is that, you know, because there's riverfront, there's a little bit of riverfront on the property. When this process started, if you recall, it was discussions about this project. It was presumed riverfront along all of Hogue Brook. the commission through its determination found that much of that length, not all of it, because my determination stopped at a certain point near the southern property line. So there were, as it was necessary, and still is necessary, because there is a little bit of riverfront work proposed to provide an alternatives analysis. So that's in large part why there are, multiple plans, because it's incumbent upon the applicant to provide that alternatives analysis. Paul actually comments briefly about that.
At what point in time did the applicant / you / someone else decide this is going to be it? Because this is the alternative that we deem to be, in at least your view, the best one, and was that presented in a way for us to asking us that, okay, I've got the whole project, this is the final step we needed. Now all you have to do is decide, do you accept this one, or is there another alternative one that the commission, having been presented, as you said, multiple ones, really feels is better, and also we want to do the filling and so forth. I'm hearing partial requests along the way from the applicant directly in his presentations in the last couple of meetings for input and feedback on pieces, not on the project as a whole, not on, these are the final 3 things we need to do. You're the first person that said in the way you just did about the filling, which is very clear, and I did read the information beforehand, so I'm comfortable with what you were saying, not proving anything or whatever, but just comfortable with that. But I'm not, this example, as you just said, when was there a point in time when the 6 options became this one? And was that provided as a presentation point? Like, this is what we want to do?
I believe so.
If I could.
Gotcha.
So we have a email, I think it's dated March 25th, and that was the last communication that I've seen from him. This was in the portal. And there are 6 required commission discretion items, including things like relocating building number 9 and proposed roadway rotary in a northerly direction. If replication area not approved, if commission is in favor. So are all of these commission discretion items laid out in the plan as final, or are these still things that he's expecting us to decide on?
Well, I mean, the plan is complete. It has, in that it has all the necessary pieces that a plan needs. But now, obviously, there are, the filling of the IVW is really the biggest question, because that's a black and white requirement for a waiver. There are other aspects, such as the turn on the road, the turnaround there, where there's discretion, because with respect to the riverfront, I put in my riverfront alternatives analysis, which again, we're required to do, that, to bring the road out there, it's possible to stay out of the riverfront altogether, but that pushes you further into the buffer zone, and in one case, a little bit into the IVW. So my opinion on that, because you're weighing apples and oranges there, my opinion there is that it's a lesser impact to go into the outer riverfront rather than into the outer portion of the IVW. You might disagree.
The sheet 20 you're talking about?
I'm sorry?
The sheet 20?
Yes.
I just don't.
So that's the sort of thing we have put on the table, a plan. We have put our view of how it meets the requirements, and I guess at this point, I would just say that is the plan. Now, the way this process, in my experience, often works is on an issue like the one I just described. Well, why are you in the riverfront? Can't you push it out? And I would explain that I could push it out, but in my opinion, it's better to clip the outer portion of the riverfront than move over there towards the IVW. And a commission in general can agree or disagree with that. And in which case, the applicant would then go back to the engineer and say, don't clip the riverfront, move the other way.
Or
And-
don't, what if the commission says, don't do either? We
Right,
don't
'cause
like
it's
either.
not either, it's not one. or
Right,
the
Well,
other.
that's
That's
Another thing, then the engineer has to decide, can they make the road somewhere else?
I don't think we can confidently say that that's the final plan, given that this is from March 23rd. The plan was March 26th, and then Chairman, you received an email after that asking us to make decisions. So I think that maybe you have been given the information that this is the final plan, but I don't think we can be confident in that because we're still being asked to give guidance. So I agree with what the chairman said. I think that's how we should move forward, and I'm not willing to personally make a decision on this when I don't think that we have received 100% confirmation that this is the final plan.
I concur. I'd also like to see the other 42 pages
Oh,
of plans.
okay. So that letter that was dated, that the one with the discretionary, is that the one?
Yep.
What's the date on that one?
March 23rd.
Are you familiar with that letter?
Yep, so that was their response to the working group, that's the feedback requested for the working group
But,
meeting.
have you seen that letter? Do you know the discretionary that they're talking about at the bottom? Like,
Page 3 out of
did
65.
you address any or all of
I
them?
did not
Okay.
purposely, because, again, the frustration has been that the fact that the record is scattered, right? I think we've all acknowledged that typically you would submit an application, a supporting narrative, right, that goes over the performance standards under your bylaw and under the regulations, Protection Act regulations, addresses how aspects of the project meets or doesn't those performance standards, and if it doesn't, you know, how they're gonna be mitigated. And then the record plans. So the March 23rd response was 7 exhibits, 7 separate exhibits that addresses, you know, I guess, specific elements of that working group. It was my expectation that at least most of those would be incorporated onto the plans as either plan notes or annotations or details, really, of what's going on. You know, there's a description of a crossing of Hog Brook for the sewer line. And it says we could do this, restore it this way or this way. Well, it doesn't really show you or tell you really what's gonna be done. So how can you assess what's better if it's kind of leaving it up as an option? And again, I agree. I think the best approach would be if the information's all there, just assemble it as a complete package, you know? Just give us something to review as a complete package versus piecemeal. Because there's been 2 iterations now of review of different elements of it. And still not really addressing the project as a whole. And I think it'd be really beneficial, both the applicant, the commission, and ourselves, be able to look at it as one submission. If it's all there, it's all there. We at least have it as one cover. It's the record that you would actually reference in an order, if you ever issue an order, right? Say plans dated, whatever, supported by the narrative and the application. Now, I know there's been changes to some of the work in riverfront area, so I would imagine that would change the numbers in terms of riverfront area impact. So where are we with, I don't even know where we are with impact areas. You know, bank, DBW, riverfront area, BLSF. It's important to have, you know, what's proposed for impacts. How are you gonna avoid or minimize? You know, address it in your performance standards and show it on the plans. Again, I agree with the commission that it's been frustrating and that it's been a scattered record and difficult to assess as a whole.
Thank you, that's very helpful. And Commissioner, any other?
Mr. Chair, I think the direction's clear. Tie it up, pull it together as a single submission, and
Come back to us.
we'll make
Send it
our
back to us.
reviews or rejections based on that.
Well, in advance of the next meeting that you're scheduled for.
Right.
Not the day before.
Yeah.
Well, in advance.
All based on what you're hearing from us and what you know is available for documentation. Is it reasonable to say that within 2 weeks, we could get it so that if we postpone this meeting for a month, 4 weeks, because we want at least 2 weeks to review the information, that we would have everything in hand, meaning full plan sets, full narrative, any very, waiver requests specifically, spelled out. None of the option this, or we could do that, the vagueness taken out as some of some of the recommendations for example, sewer line crossing and so forth. I agree, Paul, I saw that too, I was like, well, what are they gonna do? We're not waiting for construction planning meetings to have all this stuff happen, this is a project review. And some of the stuff we need to know in advance, some of it you have to decide in construction meeting, but didn't sound like that was even being considered as a part of the construction process, it just planning processes and specifically requested to wait till then. So all that information, you think you have in 2 weeks?
In 2 weeks, yes. I was afraid you were gonna say one.
No, I'm trying to be reasonable. I would
I
rather,
don't know your timeline.
last thing we want to do is rush the process. And we're basically saying, I think we want to put the brakes on the process because we want to be able to make sure we are able to review it in the times that we as basically volunteers have to do this. And it's a very large project. It's a complicated project. We are counting on BSC to provide the technical aspects, the environmental aspects that we don't have the expertise to know. That's why they're hired to do it. That's why we're paying for it. But
Mr. Chair, to elaborate on one of your points, I'm staring at a project file that has over 60 files in it. I'd like to draw a line and say, ignore all that. Here's the new one. Whatever I need is in that submission.
well, I assume the complete package that I was referring to, the documents would come to Hannah and she would then forward to us with that clear delineation, create a new folder.
I'm not shopping back over a year and a half or a year.
Yeah, no, I was actually gonna summarize what Mr. Kohler just said, that would be the intent,
Okay.
is that, you could just put a little folder in your computer like I like to do and say, material submitted on date X.
Okay.
And to your point, Mr. Kohler, everything, you don't want or need to look before that.
Thank you.
That would be very helpful.
Mr. Chair, understood.
Yes,
Again, I reiterate, what the contractor would see is really the plan set. So really, I would say a majority of this information specific to the work should be shown and described on the plans. And not as an attachment. That just supports the application, whatever narrative an application just supports what you're doing on the plans, but the plans are dictating what work is going to be done. So it has to be clear, in my opinion, that what is being done is shown on the plan or described as a call out, whatever it might be. But it has to be clear. And I think the detail is lacking, right now.
If I can ask, just, there's differences of opinion on this, things like, planting specs for replication. Are you okay with that being in a separate narrative?
In a perfect world, that should be one plan, right? That's your mitigation plan. It'll be your grading plan and your planting plan with a list of plantings,
And the
soil
protocol on
notes,
the
right?
plan?
Everything's there, all the details there. So really, a contractor could take that, he could determine, volume of topsoil, number of plants, size of plants, grades, to a datum. I mean, you could just run with that plan as the mitigation plan for the project and not in 3 different areas with information that has to be pulled in. It just has to be a standalone plan.
If I could. Thank you. The key point there, we're finding, at least my experience, we're finding that supplemental documents are being not followed closely, if followed at all. So the more that is on the drawing that the mechanic or field guy will open up and read, the greater the success of the project following the intent.
Okay, I understand. I mean, I've done that before. Where we actually take the narrative, because there's a narrative protocol for doing the replication
Does the board agree?
and have that pasted.
Yeah, I mean, that's your
Pasted
notes,
on,
that's your
on the back plan.
notes on the mitigation plan,
okay, so direction's pretty clear, you're good with that, you understanding that. I think we have enough for the record that if we need to place something back and make notes of what has been suggested by either Paul or Paul from each members, we can double check that to make sure we're crafting response. I will work on an email this a couple of days for Lou just to tie the end from our end together. But in the meantime, I think we want to, unless it's commission has anything else they want to bring up. About this, continue this hearing to Hannah's,
That's the public.
sure, I'll ask for input too, but just give me a date first, so I know it's
Oh,
not
well,
the
the
23rd.
next meeting's the 23rd, and then after that is May 14th.
I think we,
Excuse me, did you say 14?
14th, yeah.
We're doing one.
yeah, so the.
Yeah,
4
it would
weeks.
be a month.
I wanted to make sure, because in the back of my mind, I know we gotta, I think we have a town meeting the second, Oh.
I think that's actually further than we thought.
is it
I think
June?
we talked, I think.
Yeah, I looked it up
Yeah,
last time. I don't
okay.
recall the date, but it was.
It may not be in May, then, okay, it's in June, okay, that's
And
fine.
May's kind of a weird month because.
So what was it, May, what?
The 14th,
Okay.
because May 1st is on a Thursday, so the
before I
second Wednesday. is-
Open that for a motion to do that, I will ask anybody else in the audience there.
I'm just speaking on behalf of somebody who wasn't able to make it here tonight. Due to a sick child. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
With respect to the vernal pool, I believe it's number 1577, which is like what is on Prospect Street and kind of just bifurcates, Bellingham and Franklin. It's a certified vernal pool. Just west of that is another wetlands that appears to connect to it. Is that all one large contiguous vernal pool? Or are they two separate vernal? Or is one a certified vernal pool and another one is just isolated wetlands?
I'm gonna defer to anybody other than me because I don't remember. I know what you're talking about with the bifurcated area, because I was gonna ask that general question. When a water body is divided between two towns, and one of the towns, us, is involved, but the other one, Franklin in this case, is not been actively involved in our protocol and activity for review. At what point in time do we have to confer with them because the water body is split?
Well, you're charged with reviewing the work within your town boundaries.
So we look at this half of the water and don't assume the water's gonna
Well,
touch the
I
other
mean,
water, okay?
it's, you obviously consider the whole wetland, but you regulate the work in your town.
Yeah.
That's my view of the way, what the regs say.
Okay.
So in terms of the pool, if I understand what this gentleman was describing, it's the pool that was actually, I think, created by the railroad grade.
Yeah, I can show you this right here. This is the certified. vernal
Yeah,
pool,
yeah, so this
1577.
is the real, so it's just to the east of the railroad grade.
Yeah.
And it's clearly a pool, I think, I don't know if it was before the railroad now, but that berm holds the water in there. There is, I've looked and did not find any connection, culvert pipe or anything through the railroad berm. So I don't think there's any connection. As I said, I can't swear that I didn't miss something, but I looked for it. And also the fact that I've seen the water there ponded, for fairly high and fairly long time, which tells me there's no connection, probably.
Whether it's two separate vernal pools or certifiable vernal pools eventually or whatever, that's not something.
Yeah, so across, there's a big wooded swamp that we walked the perimeter of, on the west side of the railroad grade. But there's no, that's, as I said, it's a big wooded swamp. It's a very different character than the ponded pool to the east of the railroad grade.
And might I ask, sorry if I interrupted you. Did you have something more?
Don't go.
Okay. Does it meet the physical characteristics of a vernal pool, in your opinion?
I'm not aware of any area to the west of that pool. Where there's a ponding area that would meet the physical pool characteristics.
And I also wanted to mention, the BSC peer review that I had looked at, that was conducted on January 2nd of 2025, in the wintertime, which is quite an opportune time to assess for the biological sorry if I'm using the wrong wording, certification of a vernal pool.
Yeah,
but
we would generally not have somebody review, or nor would we probably want to consider the certification during the middle of the winter. It's springtime, usually specified. Sometimes projects have been delayed, I know here within the commission realm, because we need to certify a vernal pool, and even the applicants agreed they can't do it till the springtime because they know that's the only time that you can accurately do that. So, yes, to your point, if it was a January review of something, that would not have necessarily been valid.
And it would be possible, just
I'm not a wetlands expert. It would be possible for a wood frog, for example, to jump from the certified vernal pool to the area just west of that railroad berm that you were referencing. If it.
Yeah,
was to
sure. I
meet
mean,
those physical
they
characteristics.
cross roads. I mean, yeah.
Yeah,
So is that the question?
Just the presence of an adult wood frog doesn't.
Right, it would
specify
have
that it's
to
a
also
vernal.
meet the physical characteristics, and it seems as though the assessments that have been made during the winter, which might also inhibit those physical certifications as well, right? Like assessing
I
for
don't-
inlets, outlets.
I mean, I've been out there many times in various times of the year. You know, walked with the commission, you know, looked at every flag around that whole perimeter. You know, it's kind of a zigzag line you can see on the plan. As I said, I'm not aware of any ponding areas that would provide, you know, vernal pool breeding habitat. Obviously, it's wooded terrestrial habitat. So, and there are wood frogs in that pool. I've seen the egg masses in the pool to the east of the railroad. So might they move up over the berm and go in the west? Absolutely.
And I don't mean to call into question anything that you've done. You seem to know a lot of what you're talking about, and I apologize if it comes off that way.
That's fine.
I'm just citing what I've seen, or what I can see from a map, really.
Is what you're I did not get a chance to go out and walk this, is what you're talking about on this plan, just so I can see where it sits?
Is it okay if I show you the?
What sheet number is it that you're looking at?
He's looking
So
at the
this is
GIS.
the NHESP maps, which show the vernal pools.
You're talking about the one on the Franklin.
Oh, yes, so if you see that little.
Yeah, can you pull up like the big sheet?
Oh.
Go around.
Oh, yeah.
I'll say just.
So I
Those-
apologize to everybody for lacking.
Pools on the
I
Franklin.
actually was
Plan
ready
being
to
on
email you.
on
gotta
the-
get this technology straightened out.
No.
With the
I
speaker.
can describe for people where this is.
Seriously.
If,
This is the second.
walk in fall?
It's like, this is.
if you, well, do you know where the primary crossing is, the existing crossing?
Yeah.
So if you're standing on the existing crossing, you head
I'll talk to
east
Dr.
towards Prospect Street, you're now on the railroad grade. If you go north, probably just 200 yards, the pool would then be on your right.
My apologies.
Did folks understand that description?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
I'm
Without
sorry,
being-
I need to,
Yeah, no.
I need to see it on a map, or
I was
else I'm
like,
just not
I
gonna,
was trying to.
yeah. Sorry,
So again, if you picture the railroad grade, you know the existing
I
crossings.
haven't been out there, so
Oh,
the
okay.
answer is no, so I have to see.
All right, well,
So, just for a second, to look at the plan, see if I can go plan, meantime, I'm just gonna try to move things along. Sir, go ahead, you got a question, we can
Yeah,
maybe answer.
Earlier this week, we had another significant event at Prospect and Lake Street, which involved the town of Franklin with an excavator and a bunch of trucks in that wetland where they repaired the road and put the new culvert. And then all that water from there, when they did whatever they did, wound up with Lake Street underwater, flooded, impassable.
So the work that you're talking about with Franklin going, was that on Prospect, right down by the corner?
Prospect where they put the new culvert during the winter.
And the, yeah, almost to Lake Street, but not quite, just a little bit.
On the Bellingham side, there was an excavator down in the woods, off the road surface down below. There was, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 trucks up on the street. There's a lot of work going on, a lot of guys over there. And then when I took a right on the Lake Street, you go home, Lake Street's underwater again.
Yeah, we have had some
So-
observations about it.
So-
We should.
My point being that if the water, which obviously connects from that body of water that Prospect Street crosses, it ends up down at Lake Street, and the builder wants to put a road through there and modify that wetland. I just don't see how that's,
That's one of the things, that's exactly one of the things that we need to review as part of the project, to make sure that we're getting a good picture of every aspect, including potentially flooding on Lake Street, impacts the resource area there, and or a road maybe.
And I appreciate what was brought up by the board tonight, because not only are you folks going in circles, but we, the public, have been coming to meetings for how, I mean, we're talking years now. And this is just going in a circle, and it's gotta stop.
Okay.
And I appreciate that you guys are working on that.
Thanks.
And my other concern that I've expressed before is that forced sewer main going through the wetland, and going through all that, not Blackmount Street to Cross Street. And now in the Valley Breeze or whatever that newspaper is in Woonsocket, there's a big to-do going on with the sewer plant down there. So I'm not convinced that the sewer could safely get to Woonsocket if they'll take it. What happens if that sewer main breaks out in our aquifer? That's a major concern for me, because that feeds our cross street well. That sewer main has been my primary concern.
Right, have you talked to anyone at the planning board, because they do have the
Do I
jurisdiction?
talk to who?
Anyone at the planning board about that, Rob or anybody?
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
I'm in all the meetings
Okay,
that I
that's
can
fine. I
possibly
figured
make.
you probably were, but that, and just so that you're clear, that is something that, while we understand the sewer main is gonna be going across the conservation and or the whole project site, or a good portion of it, and we'll have some environmental impacts. The part about whether it fails or doesn't, whether Woonsocket has the ability to handle it or not, those are unfortunately completely outside of our jurisdiction, so, but I hear your point. And it is a valid concern, certainly, if that pipe breaks in conservation or any other area, it's gonna be.
And they do break, I hear it all the time.
Ma'am,
Yeah, hi, I just wanted to remind you, we were talking, thank you for insisting that we get a good set of plans. But don't forget, I've come to all of these meetings and I have brought all the communication, and I know you've seen it from Franklin, that it was changed, the access from Prospect Street, because Franklin has denied it. Franklin won't allow it. That's why it was changed to Lake Street. Lake Street has flooded, and I met Hannah just as she was coming in. I've got dozens of pictures from earlier this week of the entire area that's flooded that I'm gonna send to her. And she did say that other people have sent them, but this is a huge concern because the area that's flooding is the area that they want to cut the road into.
thank you, yep, I've seen some of those pictures, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Did you want to-
seen
Yeah, I
what
wanna.
you see?
Oh, yeah, I got it.
So I think she's good with that.
So we were talking about, I had a question in this, and thank you for putting this up here. This is the area we were talking about before, right? Here's the area that we're just referring to as far, I believe, right? Or it's not, it's the Hogue Brook,
The,
the vernal pool that you were referring to?
This is
Right,
the
where we are
vernal.
It's, I think it's up.
Yeah, so that's the
there it
vernal
is,
pool,
right.
right?
Right, all right, there's, see the blue star near
Yep,
the top?
Yep,
That's it right there.
okay, thank you. And then, but as I was looking at this, I also noticed this is the area that, one of the maps that we've gotten is talking about having the road come in. And we've talked about some wetlands in the area, but I just noticed, right, there's this area here, which is across the street from where that intersection is being proposed. Is that something, Paul, that we've looked at? Is it mapped out? Is the entrance of that road within 100 feet of the wetlands that's directly
Well,
across the street?
we flagged, the stream crosses the road,
Yeah.
right, right at your finger.
Yep, but then, see, it comes down here too.
it's probably well outside 100 feet.
So this is where I'm,
Right around the road.
right, it's right there, because that, when I went by it this morning, that was all flooded, mainly because of, you know, what we're talking about, that lady was just referring to, but this area is always wet. And he left, but one of the neighbors who actually owns this property was here earlier, and I think that was one of the points he wanted to bring up. This is wetlands, it's always been wet. And is that, you know, everything I've seen shows
I guess
one
the
side of the road.
question is
versus
it
the other.
jurisdictional, so within
Right.
100 feet of
Right.
the resource area and the project that we are reviewing, because if it is, then we should definitely review
It
it.
should be.
If it's outside the 100 foot, then
Then we can't.
unfortunately,
Yep.
it's outside and not jurisdictional to us, although it certainly can impact it, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be looking at the road in that area. If that is sheet 20, as we saw, with potentially connecting there with Lake Street, that's
Yeah.
perfect opportunity, very much pertinent to our review.
Paul, does the project have a Prospect Street access?
Does it have a Prospect Street what?
Access?
Yes,
The main access.
the main access is to Prospect Street, yes.
And Franklin has approved that or denied it?
It's,
You may be asking.
there was, I'm not the best person to ask this question, but my
I
understanding
am.
is that there was initial pushback from Franklin. I don't know exactly the format of that, but that has been resolved possibly in court. So I believe very much that that issue has been resolved, that
Okay,
there
so the
was.
new drawings we get will have a Prospect Street entrance.
The plan before you shows the primary access heading west from Prospect Street, essentially perpendicular to Prospect Street. And that's the road that leads into the existing / proposed crossing of Old Brook.
Okay, and just for the audience, if there is some inaccuracies there, it's not correct. Franklin did deny it, something like that. The planning board is on top of the roadway stuff, so, and they've been involved in legal departments in both towns have been involved with the applicant. It won't be a surprise, something won't slide by and there won't be a road shown that's not there or vice versa. So that will be taken into account, but that's good that you brought that up. Thank you. Anything else on this particular project from the commission members? I'm gonna need to move us along. It's getting late and I think we've covered first. We have plans moving forward. We've already made a motion, Hannah? We did not. Okay, so we set the date, then you want to make sure you answer. Okay. So I will accept motion to continue this hearing for off the Lake Street, Prospect Street, Prospect Hill Village to the evening of May 14th at 7 p.m. James, second.
Second.
Second. Any other discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. Yes, well.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you very much, Paul, for good. We'll be in touch.
Thank you both. Yep.
Thank you, anyone else who wishes to leave this.
Thank you.
concludes This section of
Thank
this
you.
one hearing of the meeting. We're not done the meeting yet. We will next be moving along to, a couple of other items here on the agenda. If you have the agenda, you know.
Yep.
I'm just gonna. Go right over, get it out of the way. So I will move to the next one, which is gonna be continued to, anyway, to another hearing, so, another meeting, sorry. That's a continued meeting for an RDA, the MBTA commuter rail right of way. Implementing the rules of 5-year vegetative management plan, BMP, along the MBTA's commuter rail right of way in Bellingham to eliminate, control, and manage vegetation along the right of way. And we got Pascal's director, Gillis Environmental, and Matt Donovan, Nesh of Portland is the representative. Hopefully that's online, correct? So,
No, they requested a.
they just requested a continuation, as Hannah said, so to the evening of 23rd of April, I'll accept the motion to. Thank you.
Seconded.
Okay, and Tom, thank you, very good. Okay, any other comments? No, hearing none, seeing none, all in favor?
Bye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Moving along, Iris Lane, 31 Iris Lane. If anyone's here for Iris Lane, come right up, thank you.
Geez, they had to sit here for 2 hours.
Sorry about the wait, but hopefully you were entertained a little bit. If you were, that's sad because.
Yeah,
Anyway.
this is a good learning for us to, we recently moved from a different place to
Yeah.
Bellingham. We are, now it's been like not a year also, but since last April, end of April. And so we are happy to get into this neighborhood and we really liking it. And you know, this is the very first time for us to attend this kind of meeting and you know, to learn a lot of things that which we are really not aware of it.
Many people in town are not aware of many things about the Conservation Commission. Unfortunately, sometimes they have to come to the meetings and find that out, sometimes they find out beforehand, but thank you for coming. Let me just finish reading this before to start the meeting,
Yes.
this hearing. This is a new meeting for a RDA, determination of applicability for 31 Iris Lane, which involves grading and clearing for the installation of a drainage pipe and gardening area within the 100-foot buffer zone to BBW. Shiva.
Yeah, you can go with Shiva, sir.
Is the applicant and they're representing themselves. So if you'd like to briefly describe, the plans are up here, what it is you're proposed doing, just for the record, that would be helpful.
So the buffer line is like 100 feet away. So whatever the builder did, they have like installed a flat sort of control thing before. They just cut it down so that you know it's like a little bumpy out, and the water, whatever that is being getting from the rain or you know whatever that's falling on my house, and you know it's all draining like on the lawn itself, and a lot of mosquitoes has been getting formed. And, there was a drain pipe that was being left after that buffer line. So we want, and the land is not even, flat. So it has a lot of bumps in it, so the water gets stagnated right over there. And, it's causing a lot of mosquitoes and, getting those weeds growing very big. And, what we initially thought is like, we just wanted to clean it out so that the water can go flow little further. And we wanted to install a little pipe to extend that water to go a little flow down. And, we wanted to place some small, a vegetable garden that we wanted to grow organic food and have some, flower trees to make it little, good, and, have some fruit trees like, apple and, peach trees and, berry trees.
Where on the plan there is the drainage pipe that we have?
Can I come over
Yeah,
there?
sure. Right up.
So, right now the pipe is right here.
Which way does it run, from the house all the way up there?
Yes, the pipe all the way goes to here.
And is it from the roof that the drain is coming, or from the basement, or
Um,
what water would come out of that drain?
Foundation.
It's
From the
the rainwater
foundation.
that goes from the road, from
like-
all the roads that just flows from the road and into the wetlands. So because of which, the wetland, height is a bit more than the lawn height. It's about like a feet, around a feet.
A foot down?
Yeah.
Under the ground, but you're saying it's coming from the road, not just from
Yeah.
your house?
No, sir, and, this pipe is for the basement, that they installed, like, for the draining, the rainwater to go into that.
Okay, so that's a foundation pipe, a drain pipe.
Maybe we
you-
are not good at.
Are there, no,
terminology,
no,
but-
so let me
It's like
understand,
groundwater.
Where-
Yeah, like the water.
is there a pipe coming from Iris Lane, because?
Yes.
So where is that pipe?
So that is the pipe, sir, the one that he has shown.
So,
that
I
is-
mean, maybe she's, understood about it, but the water, whatever that is flowing through is right from here, the pipe is right from here. It goes all the way like that.
So there isn't anything under the ground for this location.
No, not this
That
way,
was-
sir.
Right.
They have a drainage this way, but not like this. So
Okay.
whatever the pipe that is installed for.
It's
the
from
house-
just your house? Okay,
Yeah, for
okay.
the whatever the.
Because if
main
it's coming
drain
from the
was.
street as a sewer drain or a
Yeah.
storm drain or something, that's much different than a house drain, okay, all right. just-
Yeah, maybe we,
Okay,
not
and
good at
how much-
terminology.
So where does it stop right now?
Right here, right. at this
How much
place.
how much more did you want to extend it?
So I just wanted to extend to 20 feet or so.
You have 30 feet on there.
Yeah, I just marked it as a rough
Yeah,
estimate.
roughly 30,
roughly
20
I
to
made
10
it.
to 30
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
10 feet and 30 feet are 3 times the difference, so you need to be specific when you
Yeah,
say.
so my lot is until here, sir. So from here, till this line, it is like 77 feet.
Okay,
So I just marked it approximately, this is what we did.
but you want him to have the drain line go to the 40-foot mark, is that where you?
No,
want it?
no, sir. I just marked this from 30 feet to this line.
Right, so if you go from where the pipe stops now, right about where it says 30 feet,
Yes, sir.
you want to go to the horizontal line,
No, sir. Right here.
which is
From
another,
this,
That's about 30 feet.
Yeah,
According to
I
your map.
just marked this
Okay.
at 30 feet.
so you want to add 30 feet of pipe to bring it to within 40 feet of the wetlands.
No,
Okay,
no.
just want to be sure.
That last dash line is the 25 foot. That's not the wetland.
This one, it says 100, sir.
No. The top one, that's
Oh,
the
this-
25 foot.
Oh,
buffer
it brings
zone.
it to the
Yeah.
25-foot buffer.
So he's gonna be 40 feet away from the 25 foot buffer zone.
Okay,
so
gotcha.
65 feet
That's
away.
helpful, because I thought that was the wetlands.
Yep.
What
So is that
what
where
are
your
the three?
line is, or is that,
This is, my lot line.
where does your line,
Which line?
Your lawn.
your grass?
Oh, my grass ends right here. This dotted line? Right here.
At the 100-foot buffer.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
right.
So you wanted, so basically what you're asking is to turn additional area into lawn for gardens.
Yeah,
And
and
trees.
send drain pipe.
yeah, just only for vegetable garden and, the plant, fruit trees and there are big trees right here, very big trees.
There were,
Yeah, there are.
there are. or
Yeah, there
were?
are very big trees, so.
They have not been cut down yet.
No, sir, we just cleaned, trying to clean around that, so that, we can plant some trees around it. Small, like flower trees.
So if there are a couple of large trees there and they're right over the ones that flower garden and right next to fruit trees, Is that something that's gonna be an issue with those trees blocking the sun and
No,
whatever?
this area does not have any.
No, I know, the two big ones though, I don't know about shading, I don't know how close they are, they look like
Yeah,
they're within
this,
20 feet.
this area is completely open up, sir.
Right.
There are, nothing is covering, it's
So
open.
the two big trees that you pointed to, show me where those are.
They're right here.
Okay, so those won't be an issue with any of the gardens?
No, because we try to plant only flower trees next.
Why not,
to
the tree shade, and
Yeah.
sometimes people don't want trees near their gardens because they want the sun, so I'm just making sure you're not planning cutting those trees.
No, I don't have any plan to cut down those big trees.
Okay, all right, that's fine. I just
But
wanna
some
make
of the
sure.
smaller trees were cut.
Yeah, there are.
There were
uh,
smaller
one tree
trees,
right,
looking at
one
the
tree right here, two trees right over here where
Right.
one of them were been rotten out already. So, before doing anything, we were not really aware of anything, sir. When we bought this property, the builder, whoever the salesperson told us, are not informed anything or not educated as anything as a first time home buyers. So we really don't know anything about this. So they said that, you can clean it out. And you can, you cannot build anything, but you can clean it. You can add mulch, you can add a fire pit, something like that. But, they said that if you wanted to cut a big tree, then you need to get a permit. That is what they told us, but later on when we spoke with, I came over to.
Dr. Woolman.
Yeah, then she educated me, like,
Yeah, I
with
heard-
more, a lot of information.
I heard she provided quite a bit, not just once, but twice, first to your wife and then to you, yeah, that's good. Yes, okay, yes, so, yes, go ahead, Steve.
Who's controlling that?
Me.
You go to page 2,
Is there a page? Oh, there we go, okay.
one more. Where are the photographs?
A different document.
That was my like site visit, that I wrote up.
They have to-
Okay.
That's on like a separate sheet.
Yeah,
Okay,
maybe
Jack.
behind
I
that.
didn't realize this was gonna turn into a
Bar.
whole meeting of you controlling this, I'm sorry.
How do I get rid of this bar?
You can't.
You just hit okay and it goes away.
No, it says like, turn on the audio. and-
The blue, okay.
No, it's not it's not what I have on my
Okay.
screen. All right.
What we're seeing is not what it
Share.
is. Technology, gotta love it.
Is it,
Yep, right there.
okay.
Okay, so while she's calling that up, any commission members have other questions about this kind of thing, I think it's pretty obvious what's going on. As far as the
All
overall
right, right there,
project.
no, that one, can you zoom in on the pipe in the bottom of the, right at the grass line?
Right here.
Is that your drainage pipe coming from your house?
Yes.
And you wanna go about to where the stump is that about 30 feet or is that?
That is further 30 feet, sir.
That's farther than 30?
Yeah, right here, until here, it will be like 30, sir.
Okay.
Somewhere around.
When was this photograph taken?
I think it's on the notes.
Yeah, March, only a little while ago.
Oh, yeah.
It's not very wet back there.
Yeah, we also have, as per Hannah's recommendation, to add a erosion control, it was done.
I think he's asking about the reasoning for the continuation of the pipe. He was saying it doesn't look very wet in that area at the moment. from the
Oh, and,
photos.
right now it is like that, so, but, when it rains, it will be.
So you've had water coming out of that into the ground or is it
Yes,
sticking up
that-
above the ground now?
The water flows out from here.
And just across the top of the ground?
Yeah,
Towards
and
it.
there, if you see this, probably we're not able to see much, but there are like most of the heaps,
Uneven.
like,
Hills,
like sort of waved. Most of them like that. The land is completely like that.
What about like, a little riprap?
Well, I had a question about in the. You're talking about a couple of things that sustainability practices. Implement rainwater harvesting and mulching for water conservation. Well, rainwater harvesting, were you taking rainwater from that pipe and putting it in a pool somewhere to harvest it?
It's groundwater.
I'm just trying to see, what did you mean by rainwater harvesting in the gardens that you're doing or?
Yes.
Okay, sort of like whatever gardens we're talking about, rain garden. And then, regularly inspect drainage efficiency to prevent future water stagnation. And along with that, you had further up in the plan to change the flow, here we go. Remove excess soil heaps to allow proper rainwater drainage. Ensure the land slopes naturally for water flow without disrupting the wetland. So what do you plan on doing to make, and where do you want the water to go when you're done?
So anyhow, this water is always going all the way to the down, the land is like already sloped like this. So the, this is like towards, like, down, and this is little high. So whatever the water that is being my lawn, it's not going anywhere, so it's stagnating right over there. So what I'm trying to do is like just level this out, so that, whatever the water is, that it can flow little down.
So you're actually not leveling so much as sloping it towards the wetlands. Where would you stop sloping it?
Oh, right, I'm telling you, so like
Okay.
20 to 20.
And then what's gonna happen with the water when it gets to that point? Just, it's gonna hit some higher level, because it looks like it's higher beyond that.
No, sir, it's completely sloped.
It keeps going down.
Yeah,
So
it keeps
even though,
going down.
even though it looks where that tree's down, it looks like it's a low area, and then stuff looks up like it's higher. That's not the case. Okay. So you just want it to flow over the ground. You're not putting a ditch all the way out towards the wetlands or anything like that.
No, sir, nothing
Just
like that.
wherever the pipe comes, stops, it's just gonna come out and flow across the ground. Does it ever come out of that pipe that you've seen fast enough to make the dirt wash away?
No, sir, even when there was rain, Hannah was there and she inspected the next day that, it hasn't happened anything that.
I think his question is for creating kind of channeling coming out of the pipe versus, we talked about the erosion controls.
Okay.
So that was more,
So after the pipe is in, and it's laying there and it's doing its thing and it's coming across the ground, what we wanna make sure is that if you get a lot of rain, it comes off the roof and the base foundation, wherever it's coming from, and it comes out of there and comes for a good long time because it's hard rain, that you don't wash the dirt away and wash it down towards the wetlands, because that's not a good thing. So if the water never comes out that fast and you've had some really heavy rains while you've lived there, that might be one thing. The other thing is, we might want to see about putting some stone right at the end of where the pipe comes out, so that the water can still flow around and beyond it, but it doesn't wash away the dirt. Because it doesn't take much, even if it's kind of
Yeah.
flat, to wash away, and we don't want more dirt going down into the wetlands.
Yes,
That's
sir,
a no-no.
this whatever the land right over here,
Yeah.
it's like a solid, so there is nothing, you cannot just dig like that. So-
No, rainwater and gutters and downspouts, they create their own little paths pretty soon, and it could be an issue, but we can address that if the commission wants to ask some more questions. I wanna just make sure I understood.
Yeah,
what you wanna do.
I
Okay,
mean, this is new for me, sir, so
Yeah, that's fine.
whatever the recommendations that you provide, we'll definitely take into consideration and, implement that.
okay.
Do you have I guess this is a dumb question. You have a contractor that's on site doing this work already, so you have someone on contract to do the grading?
Oh, no, sir, not for that part, just for cleaning part.
Okay,
So we just wanted to do it ourselves, so that,
Oh.
that will be our regular habitat kind of thing.
okay.
So you're gonna bring in equipment and make the grading and smooth it out after he's done clearing, after it's done clearing? Or are you just gonna by hand, or how are you gonna?
I'll be doing my own with my hands, sir, and just.
You gonna rake that whole yard flat? Oh, boy. a lot of work. Okay.
So we just wanted to make that, as part
Well,
of our.
we need to understand whether you're using equipment, whether you're doing it yourself, whether you're having a contractor, and that's where our changes come from. Okay. Any questions, additional comments?
Are these going to be raised beds?
A lot bigger one, like this size probably.
12 inches?
Yeah,
About
yeah.
About 13, not 12?
Well, it's a standard raised bed, one of them
Yeah.
is 12.
That's fine.
Did you measure how big the outlet pipe was?
so, I have now acquired a good measuring tape, so now I can do that. Prior to this, I did not have.
Could you have stuck your arm in it?
I.
Yeah, it's probably a 4-inch,
Maybe.
4 inch? or-
yeah, it's a
But-
4-inch pipe.
Okay, thanks, that's helpful. Okay.
Is one of the houses in that development that's being finished? right
It's
now?
new construction, yeah.
Yeah, so I wanted to give a little bit of context with this, is there's, I was called out to the site because there was, some violations occurring. I think some people in the neighborhood are under the impression that the conservation boundary markers that are in the back are where they can do work until versus
25 feet in front of it.
right, so the 25-foot buffer zone is, on their property, that's where it is, but other people's properties, it's pretty
Varies.
varied. So that's, something I'm gonna be kind of looking at, monitoring the site as we're going. I think there's a
Educating the
couple, I think there's a couple
neighborhood.
other areas that's occurred already.
I mean, this
For
seems
some
like-
potential enforcement.
Where's Iris Lane?
Engineering.
It's
Right
the
here.
Cross Street, Center Street, South Main.
That's
development.
between South Main Street and Cross Street,
Why would you
in
put
between.
Gotcha.
a drain that goes up,
And part of it is unfortunately, like it's theirs now, so I think they have to kind of be the ones to figure it out, but the silt fencing that's in there, it was just cut. So it's not,
They didn't even.
they didn't
take
take it out.
Yeah,
It's-
so
that's
that's the
part of
reason
the
it's
reason
causing
why
the-
it looks rounded, I think, is because the silt fencing that's in there was just chopped off at the top rather
Just let the little
than
critters
actually
get through it.
taking out.
The rabbits shoot holes in
Yeah.
them.
I don't think they.
No, not the road, but the property itself, I think would need to, have like that property closed out within EOC versus, the whole development itself that was as part of the
Did
previous
you look in to
development.
see if this property had a closed COC?
No, but it's now deeded to them.
No, I know, I was just
Oh,
curious
okay,
if
yeah.
the NOI was
Oh,
closed.
yeah, the NOI is still open. They're still working on stuff at the top of the development, so that's still ongoing. There's some Concom open space stuff that needs to be figured out. There's a lot still going on with that development.
Let's not forget about the surface.
Yeah. Oh, I was there right at the end, so not.
Michael? Just one second, as James made a good point, if we can make sure for the record that we actually, as developers, we're working through those Concom things to take measures to make sure things that you approve, like this old fence, is removed from the property owners' properties, whether they under deed or not, the developer's still on site, they should have taken care of that properly, so they're negligent in a way by not doing that, I think, right? I mean, they should have done it.
Left trash, they littered.
Right, basically. So we're saying that some of the stuff that you're having to deal with, maybe the developer who's still working on other buildings around the area might come back and do. So Hannah will let you know if that works out to be that way, but in the meantime, let's proceed with your particular project. Additional questions for this particular project?
Didn't we go to a site visit on Silver Lake that had a bunch of silt entering the backyard
Oh, wait,
about a year and a half ago?
You're asking for a lot, for my memory, but if anybody else.
I didn't go to one on that.
are you thinking of the one where they were gonna put the extra pipe into the wetland? And handle it, that was the one that I just mentioned.
No, it was before the admin change. I sat back that far.
Yeah, I don't know.
I do know that there's been some issues. That's probably why I wrote that.
But
There's
they
just so
wrote-
many. they just
Okay,
clumped
well,
together.
Irrelevant.
Yeah, let's focus on this particular one. Is there anything else about this particular project and or what we want them to do, not do, that we want to start spelling out here? Because I think we have enough info to know what they like to do, what they're asking to do, and what Hannah thinks they should do. Through our back to you.
Well, I'd like to see like limited fertilizer and herbicide/pesticide use.
Well, I think they're already talking organic, but I thought about the same thing too, when I saw the notes about that. So, yeah.
Fertilizer is organic.
Right, so yeah, that's fine, we can specify that, so you would understand that if part of the conditions that we would set would be things like. Don't use pesticides, right, you're probably organic, so you're probably not gonna use like nasty chemicals of it, but don't use pesticides, if you have any questions, Hannah could tell you whether something's okay or not to use. But if you're fertilizing the grass and so forth, that stuff eventually flows, especially with the pipes the way it is.
Yeah.
It's gonna be washed towards the wetlands and into the water areas, and we don't want that if at all possible, so. We want things to stay as natural as possible, hopefully your grass grows fine without eating any chemicals. Hopefully your trees and everything grow well, too, so we'll see. That's what she means by that, just to make sure we're clear. Okay. anything else?
And if you're gonna have fruit trees and a garden and you're gonna consume it, you don't want chemicals.
Right,
Yeah,
the proposals are about green and organic.
What's the erosion control that's out there right now, Hannah?
Straw vinyl. Just along that whole back edge.
How long do you think this is gonna take you to build?
Yeah, we just started it, so,
No, I'm just curious, how long do you think it'll take you roughly?
yeah, probably we wanted to start with a small vegetable garden and plant couple of, at least couple fruit trees.
Yeah.
So,
What
to begin with.
about, what about the handwork you're talking about doing over this big
Yeah.
area where the tractor's showing? All that dirt moving around, so do you think it'll take you a couple months, couple of years? What do you think?
A couple of months is something we are thinking. We want it to be done by the end of June. Because, that is the time where, most of the sunlight is and you can grow good. Once again, it
You
is.
grow good things except grass.
Yeah, of course.
Grass in the summertime, tough. Maybe this year, who knows? We've got crazy weather.
So we need silt
okay.
fence in the back, because if this is gonna be exposed now for a couple months being worked on, we get one rainstorm.
Yeah. Oh,
All of
Okay,
it.
that's fine.
That's my biggest concern.
Yeah, that makes sense. Steve?
Also,
Okay, Pam? All right,
I'll tell you, I'm good with, but I agree with James.
okay. So,
Just for potential, like, other question, like, cause somebody brought up the grass. Stabilizing that area, is there like a preference for,
Sounded like
not
they were-
using lawn, but
You're planning
using?
on mulching it? Is that what you said? Or did I hear something?
no, I think I heard mulching.
The builders have told me that, you can mulch.
Oh, right, that's what you.
Yeah, that kind of information was passed to all the neighbors that I have.
Yes.
So you plan to, from the area that you dug up to the back area where that 30 foot at least, to make that grass? Yes?
Not completely grass.
Well, no, where
Yeah.
the trees and the flowers aren't gonna be, but everything else that's not gonna be the trees, the flowers, or the rain, yeah, the vegetable garden. That's gonna be grass. That's what you're gonna do by hand. You're gonna smooth all that out. So you got a lot of raking and shoveling and so forth. We're trying to make sure that we have the back side of that, back where the stump is, across the back there,
Yeah, yes.
with a protection to keep any rain that happens. You get a big rainstorm, and you still have a lot of area to rake, that's all dirt and mud.
Yeah.
It's gonna be mud washing away. So because you said it sloped in that direction, we're gonna make sure that, Hannah's gonna make sure that you have the right kind of thing across the back edge. Until the work's all done and grass is growing again. Then she says, okay, you call her out, she takes a look, she says, okay, everything looks good, you can take that stuff away. And you can pull a straw or whatever she's approving out.
Okay.
So, yeah, but just so about the grass.
Right.
Yeah.
So as you're doing the grass, I don't know how big an area that is. It could be a couple 100 square feet or meters or whatever, or it could be more, but if you try to do it all one big thing and the grass doesn't grow, there's gonna be a lot of dirt/mud there. Are you gonna do it in little areas and try to put a little grass here and then do another section? Or are you gonna try to do it all at once? It's up to you. I'm not saying how you have to do it. I'm just asking.
Yeah, like saying by sections, we
So you're gonna-
work by 9 to 5.
Right, but right now it's all dirt right now. So
Yeah.
what we're concerned about is you got a lot of dirt and you're working on smoothing and making grass even in this area. What about all the rest of the area? Do you have plans to keep it from washing away if you get a rainstorm? Putting something on top of the dirt to keep it from washing, straw or not hay. I'm sorry, hay, not straw.
No, straw.
Straw, not hay. Scarecrow, gotta think of there. Okay, so we were asking, not telling you, but we would see if you have some plans in mind. Do you have
Yeah,
anything?
we already have a stall that has been installed, so half of piece. But once that has been completely done, we will be extending that all the way until where it is being cleaned up, so that,
Okay.
it doesn't.
So
wash
we're
it.
talking about covering the dirt with straw, a thin, layer of straw to keep the rain from washing it away. So you're gonna do that to protect it where you're not planting the grass seed yet. When you plant seed, obviously you don't want to do a straw because then you can't, whatever. But I'll leave that up to you. How specific do you want to be?
Oh, I was more asking like what type of cover they're allowed to do. So are they allowed to just make it lawn? Are they allowed to use like a wildlife mix?
Oh, you
Like
mean,
what?
'cause it
I was like,
wasn't lawn
is it
before?
allowed to just now be lawn?
I see what you're saying.
Right.
That was.
So
my question.
wildlife mix would be preferred in that area.
That just wouldn't be accessible for them to go
But that
around.
was, right, so
So
that was
it's-
kind of the.
it's-
You're gonna be walking through it to get to the trees in
Yeah.
the garden and stuff like that. So
I
realistically, that would be-
prefer lawn or something easily manageable, like just mulch, like you put the fabric underneath and then put mulch. And then you can refresh that every year or so. And we still got like, what, 50, 60 feet of lawn south of that?
Or, like to continuing to the house.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or whatever's, I don't know.
Out of a roof, astroturf. Okay, so.
it's really, I think that would be a preference on their part, if they prefer to manage it as lawn versus mulch. Either way, I think I'm fine.
Ariane brought up a good point or question earlier about, should we also consider, stone at the exit of the drain pipe?
I never want to stone.
Not
So
anymore.
yes, I think something where the end of the pipe comes, just a small amount, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's
4 inch
to help
pipe's not gonna be
prevent
that big an
the
area.
dirt from eroding, especially because it's not going to sit on protected soil, right? If you extend the pipe, I don't know if we should determine how long would be acceptable.
Well, you see the 30 feet or say something less, because you're
Yeah.
asking for 30, so.
So if you're asking for 30, and then at the end of that pipe, And Hannah can explain it to you, but you should have gravel there.
Okay. Or some small stone.
But yeah, small stone. three-quarter
Not a big
inch.
area, just enough, the little pipe, so the water comes out, it hits that,
And
it
it
slows
spreads.
down. And it'll keep spreading, but it won't wash stuff away. Hannah can talk to you about the details. of that. So you understand that, so that's good,
They
okay.
sell like landscaping dissipators too, that you can put at the end of this small amount of pipe.
Yeah.
I think that would serve the same purpose.
Yeah, there's also
Stuff.
mechanical things, you can get little, something like the hardware store.
It
Again,
spreads it out.
That little
Give it
green
in.
thing.
It'll spread the
Yeah,
water
but
out
it's
by
hard
some,
connected.
it's like at the end of a downspout, sometimes you see them on
And
houses.
it doesn't flows with the.
It spreads the flow out, slows it down, that's what we wanna do, is to make sure that it comes out of the pipe, it doesn't wash things away. And
The only thing I'm a
Yes.
little concerned about granting the full 30 feet is it could set a precedent for the neighbors to request 30 feet when the 100 foot is what the original applicant who's still working on the project.
so we had 25 plus 40 is 65. Joe, 25 would give you. No,
The other
25.
applicant might have, because Hannah, I don't know if Hannah checked this, but the other applicant might have very specifically left his limit of disturbance outside of the 100 foot to not require filing.
I think this was filed as a huge project.
It
Yeah.
was, but each of the houses were, it was like, yeah, you have to file separately for stuff that's in the buffer zone. They
Alright.
permitted the lots out, but. the
Alright,
roadway
so
never.
I'll open this up just to move things along. Iran suggesting something perhaps less than the requested 30 feet for length of pipe. To keep it within the 100 foot, we basically give them like 2 feet of pipe. Because it's keeping it outside of, sorry, the 100 foot. Right, I'm seeing the delineation line, basically right where it said 30 feet is the 100 foot mark, so basically where the pipe stops now would be, if you want, if the commission wants to have it stay outside 100 and not have precedent, that's what you would say. I think anything beyond that, you're going forward, but still at least 65 feet away if you went the maximum 30 feet that they're requesting. It sounds like you'd be 65 feet from the resource area, since it's at the 25 foot plus the 40. If you want to do something in between them, somebody please suggest something, because I have no opinion on this particular.
I think this is a temporary impact, the pipe itself.
I think she's concerned about the precedent and somebody else wanting to do it.
Well, I mean, we're setting the precedent that you need to file with us in order to do work.
You can make a case by case determination, and if it's closer, then
Yeah,
just
but
the line
was,
just up and down.
was the 100 foot required for the developer originally as some sort of condition because they did like mitigation elsewhere? Or
That pipe stopped there originally, right?
Yes, sir.
When you moved in, that was
right
there.
at
You didn't
the
add anything,
100
okay.
foot. So it's like, are we basically, like, did we give up something for the developer that now we're just giving away?
I don't know. I don't, do we require some, that's the point. Without knowing what was approved in part of that plan, which we would
Oh,
have to
it's
do.
okay, I got it on my computer.
Okay, well, since welcome back, yeah, welcome back.
Yeah, we're not talking about that project. Well,
So we need to move this to some sort of resolution. We either continue it if you don't want to make a decision just yet and have review of, if Ariana is suggesting, we look into whether the developer add as a condition to go to the 100 foot and therefore that might impact the decision, or if the commission doesn't want to wait for that and do something else, somebody make a motion.
I would move to approve it as proposed with conditions, so I would move to issue a negative determination
With conditions.
with conditions.
I need a second for discussion.
I'll second.
I was gonna say, you don't second them, we're gonna stay here all night, because I can't do anything until you do it. Okay, thank you. We have a second for Marianne. Okay, any other discussion about this? Does anybody want to put this off and, to give the worst case, not worst, the longest case scenario, which would be to continue for another meeting, and between time, Hannah and or Ariane, since she's concerned about this, might want to look into whether the developer on this project for the overall development had some limitation.
Pitch the idea, really.
Well, it's, I
When you
think,
pitch the idea, you gotta catch
I
it.
don't know if it would affect this specific project, but it might be good to look at because they're not done working out there, one. And it looks
And
like
I also
they
think
can follow their conditions.
they
on this
need to
one
be
problem.
giving their buyers more instruction.
Well, that's something the developer may be willing to do. Just that the real estate agent shouldn't have told you can do whatever you want.
They
But
already
they,
sold out every.
they tell everybody whatever the person wants to hear, so they'll buy the property, I'm sure. Okay, so just, so Ariane, since you're the one who had that thought, do you want to continue with that thought or just move it along up to you and deal with the developer?
I mean, I already seconded.
Okay,
I'm sure she did agree.
she did, okay, so any other discussion? Okay, So let's be clear on the, Hannah, why don't you tell us what you think the conditions are so far that you've made note of, so we're clear on that before we make a motion.
So conditions so far are limiting any fertilizer, herbicide in the 100-foot buffer zone to, you know, the organics that are under our bylaw. Needing a dissipator at the end of the pipe, which we have concluded can be extended to 30 feet. Grass or mulch is allowed. Silt fence needs to be installed at the back.
And kept there until you receive notification that the year
Oh,
is.
and hand
True
tools.
vegetables.
used for
Your use of hand
any of
tools, not
the-
equipment.
The grading that they're proposing.
So,
So the erosion control goes up next before you do any more
well,
work?
they have some already in place, but we want to make sure it's there until the end of the, because it looks like it might be for
Well, they
months.
need to put that silt fence up soon, because we got some crazy rain the other day.
Right, yeah, so.
And the only other thing was for some of the area that may have been disturbed a little bit outside that 30-foot. For like,
Like the we saw in the picture?
yeah, for like the restoration for, you know, taking out the trees that were put in the conservation area.
Oh, do you want that
and, you know,
application?
reseeding with the conservation mix in those disturbed.
Yes.
areas.
Yeah.
My other question that I forgot to bring up
That's
before.
the
but-
easiest
Yeah.
solution.
Yeah.
So the disturbed areas, wet vegetation, sorry, wetlands mix, you want to specify where in that wonderful sketch, is it right around the areas of the gardens that we're talking about? Because I thought we determined the grass area,
Yeah, the
of course, the house would not.
wood that's in here,
Yeah, no, the wood is in here.
oh, they piled it into there?
Yes, it's in conservation.
Okay, so the disturbed area beyond the 30-foot/40-foot boundary line
Yeah,
is the area you're proposing to put a wetlands mix in because it's been
Yeah.
disturbed and dug up, okay?
yeah.
All right, that makes sense. I didn't realize that was the area they're talking about, okay. That makes sense to me.
So let's make sure they understand that.
Okay, we'll
It was
go
not,
over all these
uh,
questions.
Digged up anything, sir, so whatever the dead trees that were there, they put it in the backside. So we are not aware of, that should not be done.
Well, if-
So I
if
make sure
trees-
that this been removed.
Right, if trees were down already and dead and you didn't cut them, you can leave them. That's
Okay.
what we prefer. We don't want you to pull out dead trees just because they're down. If you cut trees, anything down, Hannah can go over this with you, show you pictures and make sure you're good.
Yeah.
But anything you cut down, you have to take it out of that area and then she'll tell you what, there's some grassy special for wetlands that'll grow good. You won't mow it, you'll just leave it alone, just sprinkle it in there and let it grow and she'll tell you about that. And then up where the 30-foot line, where you want to have the pipe stop there by where the stuff was, you're gonna make sure that we have all the protection we need for the next couple months while you're doing all the yard work, so nothing washes away there. She'll tell you what should go in that area.
Yeah.
And, we already talked about pesticides and organics, and, I think that's pretty much it. So those are the conditions.
Yeah.
So what we're gonna say, we're gonna have them for a vote is we're gonna say a negative vote, but that's a good thing here, because that means you don't have to do anything more application wise, okay, so that's a good thing, you wanna hear that. And then we're gonna say with conditions, and Hannah will go over those again, she'll give them to you in writing later, and. And then go over them, make sure you're good on that, and then you'll be good to go. So, everybody's good on those orders, conditions and specified. And we had a first and a second, so who's the second? Oh, all right, that's right, thanks. Yes, okay. Okay, no other comments, questions, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so that was yes to a negative order of conditions. Yes to a negative RDA.
So Hannah will follow up with you and explain all the specific details, once she has it written up.
But you're good to go. And thank you for coming in.
Thank you so much, and thank
Welcome to
you
Bellingham.
for your
Yeah.
time
Okay.
and spending so.
Staying so late.
Thank you so much, and everyone have a good night.
Okay, gentlemen, come right up. Anybody that's left here that wants to come up toward the front, willing to? We will continue our discussion with the first part for TC5 Hartford Ave Restoration Plan Review, Michael Carrier, applicant, and Keith Hammond from the Alliance Environmental. We're back. How have things been going with your discussions with all the various people that you've probably been chatting with?
So, we have the proposal for the full project from the Download Corporation. We're expecting this last Tuesday and we got it today.
Oh, that's timely.
So-
Tuesday, but everyone's very fun.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, but so I guess the last thing I have to do is just, bring it to my trustees, and which will be Sunday, the meeting's set for Sunday. And I will look to get this approved and go with it.
Does it look doable financially?
It's 17.8, it's gonna pretty much $17,000.
I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah, I looked at it, I didn't change.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's gonna pretty much wipe our, building fund pretty low. But again, we have to, we wanna be right, we don't wanna be. As a church and as a pastor, I have to make it right, I can't.
I wish it was 1,700 for you.
Go fund me page, you never know, sometimes people really just get really generous.
This is doing it all at one. I know last time we talked about like the phase approach. That's the number for doing it all.
Ready to.
That's all.
Yeah.
Get it behind you.
Because we had another number for just mulch removal.
Yeah,
which was
we had that,
higher than this.
yeah,
Really? Just the mulch removal.
yeah,
One piece at a time, or what are they doing?
yeah, I don't know. The only question that I had was about this loam, are we don't need to bring in loam, right?
Yes, we haven't seen the soils underneath. Are they deemed hydric? I don't want to import something that's gonna affect the microbial environment in the wetland soils.
Probably Bill.
I was gonna say, given how disturbed that area is on top, I don't think there's anything.
Well, part of it, I think that corner that kind of photo that I have in there, that's my auger going 4 feet down into the mulch, and I didn't hit native soils. I'm anticipating, like, in that dipped area in the corner, that there's gonna be some hydric soils in there. So that was probably fill in BBW, versus just on the.
Well, we also have to bring in something if you're taking out that much mulch. If you dug
Well,
down
there
4
should
feet.
be, I mean, there should be, I think that was just put on top of the native soils, so there should be intact,
Nothing was
organic
just
material
floating.
and stuff under
And
there.
ideally, we don't need to be building up the grade.
Oh, no, I'm saying, if you're taking literally 4 feet out. Something.
Just in that corner though.
Yeah, I mean, if you're able to move from one part of the
There's like
hillside down soils to the other area to get it to,
That is 4 feet of tile.
I think okay, we're fine with that. I think.
Okay.
Just cost savings as well.
Yeah, if we remove that, and that'll save money and offset the cost of Alliance and all that, so, we'll just get them to update their proposal for us, and you will update, Alliance will update that.
The wetland restoration
The
plan.
wetland restoration,
I'll strike that out, that would have to be importing.
Oh, okay.
that's in there, yeah.
Mhm.
So.
The soil has to be able to handle what you're planting.
Yes,
That's the thing, if you.
no more than one piece of asphalt per horse lick.
Less than 5% tire if possible.
Yeah, hopefully there's no tires under there that you don't know.
How many parishioners do you have?
I have 36 voting members, but we have about 65 to, the highest has been 70 on Sunday.
You can't solicit weekend labor to save some of that money and each bring a rake and get out there and do some work?
We could,
And
but-
it's your call, but
I just don't know much about wetlands, I don't know much about disturbing things, and I don't wanna put a bunch of inexperienced, people out there that could disturb something that would actually cost us.
I think it'd be handling material twice too, because you manual labor to get it to a pile, and you have to get a machine there anyways to load it into a roll-off or a dump trailer to get it off-site. Machines would be faster, more
I don't
effective.
think we meant like get someone to like operate a forklift. Right?
No.
Like,
No, but
but
we've
just like part
discussed,
of it, like
yeah,
the planting part, maybe they could take over instead of like
Oh, the
just
planting.
water the plants and then have them plant it instead of.
I mean, the labor involved with that is very minor.
Yeah,
The labor
it is.
cost for them is gonna be the land delivery.
Well, the idea was to present a plan. In theory, this is what we're gonna do. The actual methodology, whether it's done by ourselves or if we hire somebody. I think if you allow us to have a little bit of that latitude, we may identify certain places where we can do it ourselves and save a little bit of money. But the plan as we present it, the end goal, how we get there, as long as we're following all the rules, might change just a little bit, but the end goal will be the same, whether we do it ourselves or whether we hire somebody. But our intent at this point is to hire this company to do it in one shot, unless we identify some areas where we can save some money and do it ourselves. One, because again, we want to do it right, and we just want to get it behind us at this point.
Well, when it comes to what you were asking about, you got the equator. You can't have more latitude than that, so. Go
And if
for
you
it.
have a question, you can just ask Hannah and she'll.
Make up an answer if she doesn't know it. She's really good. She's very good.
So my question, I guess, moving forward is, once I get I don't foresee it being a problem with my trustees. It's just gonna be, a meeting to lay it all out and get the vote, just, kind of a formal thing, but, which I have to do. Moving forward, if they approve us, to spend this money to do this, do we have to come back here, or do we just, does it go through Hannah now that we're?
I think we could approve a plan, right?
I think we have the plan.
Yeah.
Unless Hannah has some more input.
Yeah, so that was, because it seemed like we kind of came to a conclusion last meeting, so I kind of put something together because just to kind of amend the original enforcement order, because also in the original order, it names the pastor, and he did request that it get transferred to the Bellingham Bible Church because,
Yeah.
that's,
can't
he
make
has
it-
to get everything
yeah.
approved by them, so I had, amended that on the enforcement order, and then, also put in there, the only other change was that, that they came to that meeting on March 26th, that we requested that they come to in the previous enforcement order. And then this was just today, because I was waiting for the approval from them, and so it was kind of fast, so I didn't get it to you guys.
And
but
is there anything in that discusses the means and methods, that the chips are gonna be removed by a reach and scrape and not a bobcat going in and pushing?
Yeah, so I had I think in the plan, the restoration plan that, was approved or would be approved by you guys, stated that all of the vehicle traffic would be from the
All access.
From the
to road,
roadway,
down to the
yeah.
top, yeah.
And I kind of included on here, so do you mind if I just kind of read this little section that I wrote?
Do we have a
Okay.
choice?
No.
Please.
So this is just like the attachment that kind of addresses the restoration plan that they presented. The commission orders the Bellingham Bible Church to perform the following. The representative of the property, Michael Carrier, has submitted a restoration plan for restoring altered areas, wetland resources, and buffer zone along the edge of the parking lot. Was previously vegetated, the restoration plan dated, and then I'll put in the date of the plan, with noted amendments from the April 9th meeting that we had today, was approved by the Conservation Commission at the April 9th meeting. And then these were kind of the requests that would be, for that approval. Prior to the excavation taking place, the property owner shall have access to additional erosion controls in the form of straw wattles, in case that's necessary, to be placed at the edge of uncovered and unstable soil to prevent any sediment migration to the undisturbed portions of wetlands on site. I don't know if you guys had any commentary about that or different, erosion controls that you would like to see, but just in case, because I know there's supposed to be silt fence at the top of the slope, but in that area where it was, 4 foot down, I don't think the silt fence at the top of the slope would be appropriate there. As per the approved plan, the conservation agent shall be contacted after the machine excavation has been performed prior to the remainder being removed by hand in order to evaluate the uncovered native soils, and dictate the installation of any additional soil erosion controls that are necessary. The additional erosion controls shall be installed at the edge of the unstable soils while plantings are installed and seeding takes place. Any substitution for planting materials must be approved by the commission. The property owner shall complete the removal of mulch and installation of native trees and shrubs per the approved plan by, and then I think it would be helpful to have, you know, a date in there that's enforceable. Just for the purposes of if it doesn't happen, they have to come back and explain why. So I had kind of put May 5th in there. I didn't know if that was reasonable. That was just kind of a, you know.
I think next Wednesday.
By five, though, we're gonna tell by.
Yeah, I'll get out there tonight when I get home.
All right, so May 31st, if that sounds
Yeah, that's fine.
Is that,
better.
Will that work? Yeah. June 1st? You need
I'll be out of town.
So that part will be completed by May 31st. The agent shall be contacted once all plantings are installed. Oh, is it set? Okay,
Maybe
maybe that's why I think the other thing I said was a Monday.
May 30th?
Good call.
Yeah, that'd be a Saturday, geez.
I mean, like.
All right, May 30th. Let's go with it. Thank you. How did you know that that was a Saturday? Off the top of-
Technology.
Technology.
The agent shall be contacted once all plantings are installed, to evaluate on-site erosion controls, that plantings match the approved plan and planting schedule, and that the no disturb signs have been installed. As per the approved plan, the restoration area shall be monitored for a period of 2 years. We want three. 3 years to ensure planting survival. Plantings which do not survive the 3-year monitoring period shall be replaced in kind. Erosion controls shall be removed in accordance with state and local regulations once the area is deemed stabilized by a competent professional. And then I just added a note there that all vehicle traffic must be operated from the pavement, and I'll put that in there as well.
Oh, I thought you were saying that was your competent.
Does the enforcement order stay in place for 3 years? Is that how that works? Or
It stays in place until it's rectified.
Yeah.
So the monitoring period would not, I think, be considered part of that. I think the work's done, the erosion controls removed, I think at that point in time, the enforcement order could be lifted. Because the rest is,
Well, in
no,
order to enforce the plantings.
Yeah, the monitoring has to
I thought we
be
did that,
complete.
maybe we did it differently in another enforcement order the other day? Not the other day. No, maybe not. Okay, that's fine, I just, I'll defer to.
Reason for it is if the plants don't come, we want to make sure that, because it usually takes a couple of years for everything to.
Oh, we're not requiring a bond for that, right? Well, the relief, because sometimes we have to require a bond for that to guarantee that 2 years down the road, this half the stuff dies, you got the money to pay.
We're okay with having the
We're not
enforcement order in effect.
Nobody will know but us and you, pretty much. I don't think anybody else in town's gonna know that we're working on it.
At what point will the determination for the erosion control can be removed? Once germination occurs or?
5% coverage.
That's the general.
It's just that if you could put that in there, that'd be helpful.
Should I put just that? Because I don't know if it should just be.
That's not the,
It might.
that's not the whole standard,
Right.
but yeah.
Just kind of meeting the
Yeah,
standards.
anyone who's a qualified individual to say that it's stabilized can, and Hannah, I think if it's not in there already, you should be called out there before they're removed.
Yeah.
So. Hannah's that qualified individual.
Anything else? Anything else is clear? Good, okay. All right, it's just to, well, since it's just a discussion, we have to.
Just to amend the.
Oh,
Right,
that's
it's amend the enforcement orders.
Amend the enforcement, that's right, amendment. So I'll accept the motion to amend the enforcement order as just delineated and mistakenly noted by Hannah.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your patience and follow through and good luck.
And sorry.
Get those approvals.
All right,
Hopefully get the sign off.
appreciate it. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. Okay, we have one question, and then one pre-policy thing. First question is, gentlemen, the two reigning gentlemen in the room, are you here for a particular item issue? If you're just here to observe, that's fine. We're happy to have you. Okay,
I was hoping to hear the discussion on the tree policy, but, I was before this commission maybe like 10 months ago.
you what? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear it.
I was, before the commission like 10
Oh,
months ago.
okay.
About my property at 340 Lake Street,
Yeah.
where there was a violation, found to occur. I've been up to the office to talk to Robert and I met you, but there's still no resolution all this time later.
Lakes, you refresh my memory, was this
I'm at 340, so my house
Yeah, sportsmen.
abuts the road where the road was jammed right on the property line because of the IVW on the other side. And, you know, we're still suffering damages, like trees are falling down all over the place, yeah.
Smith's Trail Estates is the property
Yeah.
you're referring to?
Like we've had an abnormal number of blowdowns on top of the property damage that already occurred, and I think the way we left it last time was that we're gonna have my property surveyed and we'd follow up. And I think you left it up to me to talk to Tim Jones, which I try to do. And it's just kind of got nowhere with it. So I've had my property staked. It's pretty clear that, you know, obviously the 38 or 36-inch stump that was estimated to be 80-foot tall, like he crushed, that was on my property. The other white oak that was a little bit smaller, but it was like 24 inches, that was intersected by the property line, which, for some reason, even though it was a boundary tree, it wasn't shown on the original plan. So, I mean, that's kind of all separate,
Right.
but, I mean, those are damages, and part of his order of conditions were stated does not allow for damage of abutting property. We have the violation with the work outside the buffer, outside the line of clearing. And then we have all these unforeseen consequences where I'm telling you, it's not normal, like trees are falling down left and right in the backyard, you to walk up there.
Nowhere near the disturbed area, just falling down. That's weird.
Going down, just blow downs, I mean, I've
Is
consulted
the
with.
soil especially wet or something?
I mean, it's wetlands. This is like, I mean, if you walk out into your hall there and look at your conservation map, you'll see my property. And it's kind of, I mean, obviously their delineation showed something different where this project was allowed, but I mean, what you had was a grove. You had a pine grove that kind of spanned this berm, spanned these two wetlands, the IVW and the BVW. And it was a grove. So we had large trees, like larger diameter trees on the outside, and you had all these tall, skinny trees on the inside, which that's how pines grow. Apparently, I kind of learned all this because they're competing for sunlight.
Right.
So now I have all these tall, skinny, 100-foot pines up on this berm with no windbreak. And it's, I had talked to DEP and they stated that, these could be unforeseen consequences that need to be evaluated. And I had spoke to Hannah Crawford before she left. And I think she had what I think is the best solution is to possibly have this, and this is going back some time. I have a life, like I have a toddler at home, so it's not like, but we're kind of getting to a point where something has to be done.
So what was the best solution you saw?
To have the area peer reviewed, like just have someone look at it, see if there's some solution. You gotta remember, I'm the taxpayer. I think last time I came here asking questions, and for some reason, I ended up being asked the questions. I ended up answering the questions. So I'm not an expert. I don't know if there's a solution to be had, if the commission could consult with some expert to come up with the solution, but we've completely lost all visual screening on that side of the house, which may be a planning board issue, but again, this all lies in that 100, it's all jurisdictional, it's wetlands. So I don't know what the options are at this point, outside of whatever, civil thing that exists between me and Tim at this point.
Well, civil aside, I think one of the first thoughts I had, since you're mentioning so much about trees and just having dealt with some of the people involved, is the DPW has a new arborist who, I have met.
Isn't the applicant in this, that was the problem before.
Well, I'm saying you want to get an evaluation. You
Yeah,
recommend a
perfect.
peer review.
Yeah.
Peer reviewer, so there's wetland scientists and so forth that I'm thinking of. I'm not sure they would frankly be much help in this particular kind of review, as opposed to an arborist for the town. Since this is a.
Well, I don't know if you remember, not to interrupt, but the issue was the applicant was the arborist.
Well, this is a new individual.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's
So-
great. That's great.
Well, what would they be?
I'm saying if the issue is trees are falling down all over my property, there's wetlands involved, there's conservation land involved. Can somebody come out and take a look at it? It's not too much similar than Solange, who was, we're looking at conservation land right behind his house and
Are the
trees
trees
on that.
in conservation land?
Yeah, my entire 60% of my property is in
Yeah,
conservation.
yeah.
That's the problem.
It's property of BBW.
If you pull up
No, no,
my,
no, I meant like conservation owned land,
no.
because that was
No,
the
it's
Saban
wetlands.
situation.
Right, no,
it's
I'm aware there's some differences, but number one is trees, number two, I know we have a new,
yeah.
arborist.
yeah.
Arborist only deals with public trees.
That's not true. That's not true. You stated that the last
In our
meeting.
Conservation land.
No, that's not true. If you read your design and construction requirements, the
That's
tree
fair.
warden participates. There's no question about it.
That's what my sister was. I'm not saying the arborist will do something. I'm not saying what they can do, what they can't. I'm just saying, there's a new person in town, DPW guy, and we have met with them on some other property issues, which are different issues, but.
I just want to, can I say
Yeah,
something?
good, sure.
That's not true. The tree warden participates in design and construction requirements. That's like, if you read it, it's not too hard to find. Go on, Bellingham E360, type in tree warden, and it comes up. Actually, in this particular instance, with the planning board, the tree warden was approving the landscape plan. They allowed the project to proceed without a landscape plan, right, which is a requirement. Why that was allowed, I don't know. But in the definitive subdivision approval, the tree warden is approving the landscape plan. So this is kind of where this left us.
I mean, are we sure he's not just approving?
No, I know how to read English. It's not, I know how to read it. It says to be approved by the Bellingham Town Tree Warden, who was the applicant. You get what I'm saying?
But that was through because the last thing I heard about this was just that you were speaking to Rob and then.
Yeah,
you
we're
were
trying to
in
figure
kind
it
of
out, but I don't think
conversation, since it was the planning. It was my impression that it was mainly a planning board issue.
I mean, there's violations there too, so
Is there an active order?
it's a
For-
violation, right?
Yeah, it's for the SNET Trail Estates on Lake Street.
I remember we did a site visit a while ago.
Yeah.
How long ago? Did you like walk
When you were there.
No, that never happened. Hold
Yeah,
on,
we
that's
did.
the other
We came by and we walked down that road, right after you came in and filed your complaint.
That
But while he was there,
That walk,
on the
that's,
site?
that sidewalk
Yeah.
was canceled. That sidewalk was canceled.
I walked down it.
You walked it? I think you walked it on your own because you live nearby, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I do live, but I.
Yeah,
live nearby.
I remember that. You came.
And I
and
saw the
then-
dirt, I saw the trees they cut.
Yeah.
I thought it was someone with us, maybe it was.
I think it was, I think Robert and Neil.
Yeah.
I saw it before construction, when it was woods.
I think that there was just, the issue here was there was no consideration with the transition of ownership in the buffer zone. I think that, I've had a lot of time to think about this. It just seems like there was little consideration where, Mike owned this, which he later sold to Tim, I own this, and it's just the impacts to my property. I've solicited a lot of opinions about this. I've had experts out, I had a master arborist out, and
We've already had an arborist out, but my point about the town person as a possible resource to give you some advice about why trees are falling is all I was gonna suggest. I don't have, other than the civics, the civil side, suing them for damages or something like that. I'm not sure what else the conservation, which I agree, there are jurisdictional
I mean,
areas.
the
and so forth,
significant
but-
loss in the conservation value, that's the issue too. I know you had previously stated there's no jurisdiction here, but I mean,
There's no jurisdiction in the land rights issue. There's jurisdictional area. There's
Yeah.
an active permit for
Yeah.
those properties.
yeah, which,
So your point about the violations, if we hadn't looked into it, which I think we did, I'm not sure where it went. Now that you're back, I remember you coming in. So I know we're gonna look more into the violation piece of things, because we're having those, I remember seeing that stump,
yeah.
that huge stump. And if
Right.
that's in jurisdictional area and that was outside of an approved limit of work, that's a huge problem. So I'm not sure
I
where
don't
that
know where it
violation
goes.
went, but the land, I know you got your property surveyed and all that, and it's gonna suck to hear this, and I think we said it a lot last time, we're bound within the laws that we have power in, and we can't do anything about like someone overstepping
Yeah,
their land.
and I'm able to separate those two things.
Yeah.
I'm not asking you, that's a
Yeah.
completely, like, I have a lawyer for that. This is just something where this is jurisdictional land, right? There's been significant loss to the conservation value, which I have an appraisal just to quantify the amount of damages. It's significant. So
So
I
can
don't
you
know.
pause, Mary Ann, can you go to Mass Mapper and bring up the 21 aerial?
There were questions about the delineation. There's a lot of questions there. I mean, and I don't want to, it's getting very late. I don't want to talk your ear off, but, read through the notes and there's issues there.
2021 aerial.
They found a hand dug trench that was quote dug sometime in the past.
340 Lake.
So 340 Lake.
I think Robert was trying to reach out to Tim. I reached out to Tim on your advice that we try to
It's
come up with a
350.
solution, maybe some plantings on.
Take it to 21.
Right here, it's right here.
It's right there.
Too late, I'm typing it in, not stop.
It's just south.
It's
I'm
just,
typing it in, don't stop me. Okay, I found it.
Like all, it just, I mean, it's kind of.
And it was like a lot of the backyard, right?
Yeah, there's no,
Everything up
buffer.
there, right?
I remember you
21.
it was a big safety thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the arbor said that the trees that are left up on that berm are completely vulnerable. I said that 10 months ago, and now they're gradually blowing down. You know, I think whatever lower limbs those pines had were kind of lost when he did his tree removal, and now.
First. Okay. Why are these trees all dead looking?
That's the wetland.
The wetlands back here.
No,
No, that's the
Here's
wetland.
BBW.
That's the wetland, yeah, that's the,
So that's gonna have a bunch of maples, which are probably leaf off. right?
yeah, that's the vernal pool, I guess. So it's on the left side. On the
Just
property.
north of his lawn is right where the well is.
Again, I think the solution we came up with last time were some plantings, and Tim proposed a couple, like two.
Where are the trees falling?
Oh, all up in, I mean, I think I sent you guys pictures last time. There's a berm back there. There's like a pretty tall.
So along this edge?
Yeah, along that back edge of my property line. That was the other thing. Their survey was also inaccurate, so that's something else. It's been kind of one thing after the other.
There were like two main problems. One was that he had potentially cut trees in your property.
Yeah.
Which we then said you should get a survey and confirm that,
Yeah.
which it sounds like he did. And the second problem was that he had cut trees or didn't cut trees on his property that were falling into your property.
Yeah, I mean, he's not cutting trees anymore, but we're having blowdowns from his side of the property. We're having blowdowns on our property, and it's, again. We bought the house, we had 0 blowdowns, and then after construction, I'd say we've had 4 or 5, and to be honest, I've just left them there. I haven't cleaned them up, just to kind of illustrate what's going on. I mean, I don't really know what can be done at this point, but again, if there's some way we can recreate a wood line or some like vegetative buffer between my property and the road that's within, the power of the Conservation Commission.
Yeah, I mean, the half of the power we have is that if, and this is saying if, I'm not sure if this had happened, but if there was a violation on his permit or he worked within jurisdictional area without a permit,
Which happened.
then we can issue enforcement and rectify that issue, but that's the whole of our power, that's all
Yeah,
we can.
That's why I'm here. That's happened. Like, that's confirmed. It's not like a who done it, like we know who done it.
Yeah.
I don't have a 35-ton excavator, I can tell you that, so I didn't do it. I don't know. I don't know if there's a solution. I don't know if you want to try reaching out to Tim. I don't know if he dealt with them at all, just to see if there's, and maybe get the new arborist involved.
Does the commission want to go take a visit and see what is happening?
Please do,
This
walk
is
the property.
beforehand
line.
this time, so she's probably, I could see your eyes, I have no idea what's going on.
Because I know there was a lot of background and, we've talked a couple times
Yeah.
before, but that was right when I started.
I
and
know,
so
yeah, I
was
know,
under
and
the
even
impression
Robert
it was
wasn't,
primarily a planning board
he
issue.
wasn't the town planner when this was approved.
Yeah.
It's kind of.
It sounds like it might be helpful now that you've had the survey done to be able to provide that information anecdotally to Hannah, in documented format.
Yeah, I
To-
think
to-
I forwarded,
and-
Robert has that.
And beyond that is, I think James is right, if it is enforceable, whether there's still an active order of conditions somewhere that Tim Jones has that we can use as leverage, or whether there is not, he may still be held potentially after the fact for going on to other people's property cutting trees or not cutting trees down that he was supposed to have, well, I guess that necessarily not.
It is in his order of conditions.
Yeah, so if there was a violation of the order of conditions and or enforceable act, we can, as James said, rectify it in some way, which may be included. We want you to put trees, replacement trees of X size along this area in here, And basically, unless he wants to appeal it, he would have to do that, I think, and if that's determined to be effective. So the second part of it would be if we are gonna, if we find the survey lines right and your documentation shows it, and the pictures really show, that it's out, that stuff is on that side of the line and so forth.
It's
All the
all
stuff
in
that, all the stuff that needs to be provided as proof. And then the second part of that, have in hand, move things potentially in some direction, is to have somebody recommend what would be an effective and desirable from your point of view, but effective from an arboristic point of view. Plan, is it put 20, who, Tim Jones?
Yeah.
He came in, but I don't
And
think
this
there
was-
was,
He offered to plant 2, 3 inch trees.
I think there was a limited, very limited response.
There was an original violation that he responded to in person, and then I think it kind of went out into the ether because we either were waiting on information, didn't have information, or, I mean, a lot of it is not in our power to do anything, like.
I thought that
I'm
he had
assuming
agreed
that's
to
why it
plant.
kind of got lost.
I think you agreed.
What's that?
I thought he had agreed to plant
2,
trees.
2, 3 inch trees, but we lost 40, 60 inches of stumpage and he said he would plant 6. That was the issue. It wasn't sufficient.
So went from 2 to 6 trees total. That was offer.
No, his offer was 2, 3 inch trees.
Oh, I thought
6 inches of stumpage. That's
Oh,
like,
stumpage.
yeah, diameter of breast height, I guess. What they call it. My arborist said that wasn't a serious resolution. No serious.
Right. So again, my thought is if we are going to do a two-phase approach to reopening this, reinvestigating it, picking it up where it was left, whatever. You want to think of it as having this documented proof that we already have it in hand. If not, Hannah can make sure we have it, which would be survey proof and video proof or photograph proof of what was done wrong. Stuff was cut over the line and so forth, and that's clearly marked. So we have something that we can use as an enforcement tool, and then potentially tool. And then the second is, what would we be telling Tim Jones in this case, the person involved, that we want done as a restoration measure, because I don't want to go and just say you're in violation and then say, okay, well, so what am I gonna do? And then they have to wait X amount of time. But we want it to be done obviously in a way that will make sense and work. So is it planted 24-inch pine trees along this row here, and so forth? Somebody's gonna want to see that site, know what the issues are with stuff being down, what areas your property line are and so forth, and then conservation land is, and then be able to come up with a recommendation that we could then potentially hang our hats on and say, if we wanted to, this is the enforcement order, this is what needs to be done. This has been certified by a, arborist, wetland science, I don't know what the science is, but arborist probably, or somebody, and this is what we want done. So that's a potential approach. I'm not saying it'll work that way, but that's at least some direction to move in that I would suggest, unless the commission has some other thoughts about this.
I mean, do you think, because it sounded like even if we plant stuff in here, it doesn't sound like it's gonna survive.
Oh, I mean, it's hard to tell.
It sounds like it's coming out of the ground pretty easily.
Yeah,
Or unless it's like
I mean,
deadfall, like what's fallen, I guess.
We were fighting the drought too. Just pines, man, like,
But they look healthy, they're not like,
we're healthy. Like I said, we got 0 blowdowns before the removal of the rest of the growth. We had 0 blowdowns.
so I'm not even sure.
I mean, you can't really
Planting
prove
them
like
like-
this is what caused it, but.
I have 3 large pines at my house that are down now.
You too, yeah.
They weren't when I moved in.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Any other thoughts on this? Anybody have any suggestions that they want to pursue this, not pursue this? Is this
I think
direction
it's,
gonna go?
it's worth looking into, because I don't remember that there was a resolution, but if there was, I'd like to know what we decided.
I mean, maybe check in with Robert, because I know Robert.
Okay, well, we have minutes and so forth from that meeting. We can go back. Do you remember the date you came in? You may remember better than us for some reason. Okay, we can look back.
I'll let you know that.
Yeah.
Was it?
Your
even
file's
last
just so
year or was
complete that
it
if you could type his name in and it would pop up with the meeting.
Oh, yeah.
All right, I just want to
Okay,
put it
so-
back on the radar, just
Yeah.
like I
So
said.
be in touch with Hannah and or she'll be in touch with you if you've already transmitted the information, sent it to her about the survey, the latest survey that you had done, because that's news to me. I think we
Yeah.
were waiting on the survey.
Yeah.
Make sure
Good
she
stuff.
gets that and then we'll see what
Okay.
we can do.
All right, thank you.
All right, great.
Appreciate
Thank you.
it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
good night.
You're the tree policy?
No, I'm here to learn.
Okay, that's fine, because that's the last thing we're discussing, and so if they weren't here for something else, that's what you're gonna hear last. We have no minutes to approve tonight, which is nice.
The video our IT person was out and I didn't hit record on Zoom, so it was only on there, so we had to wait until she got the minutes to Katie. And we have minutes for next time.
It's fine. We're current, I mean, for within a month or a week or 2 weeks or, okay, tree policy, what do you want to say?
First of all, I think you did a
Thoroughly
great
looked it
job.
over.
Before we get into the policy, I found the reference,
Oh, okay.
it's in at the very end, we have the plan details what we require on a plan.
Yeah, okay, that's what I was.
That's why he requested the waiver, because it's expressly required on the plan.
And what does it say for the 10? All right, so I knew it was 8 or 10.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
That's
shouldn't be a big lift, there wasn't that
No,
many huge trees.
but there's a few of them, so I just want to know how many, because that's gonna have a significant impact on the way water gets absorbed.
He's just done that for.
All right,
All right.
policy.
My notes on that 340 was that Tim was going to replace 3 trees.
I thought that was the resolution. I thought that was the reason.
Yeah, but he wasn't satisfied with it, though, I know, so that was what he proposed.
If I remember right, it's because all 3 trees are his property.
Exactly.
So anybody have any editorial or observation about the adopted page on documents?
You had mentioned photos and you mentioned explaining what UBH was a little bit
Yes.
better.
Yep.
Yeah, those were the 2 notes you given me.
Hannah sent, when did you send the
Oh,
policy out?
so this is, because you weren't here last time, so we discussed that this is in the portal for last meeting.
Yeah, but I think you have printed it too.
I did.
Oh, you
I
didn't?
printed a copy.
I
for
remember
you.
reading, I must have printed it, because I remember,
Copy.
I remember like looking at it printed, I must have printed it.
Yeah, you must have printed.
So does such a document exist as a tree removal application form, which is under section 3 at the bottom of the first page?
That was something that Lincoln had in their other documents, and I will adapt if you guys. I wanted to get feedback.
Sure,
from
so
this
there is
one
a form
before
that
I-
you've seen somewhere out there that we can
Yep.
adapt. Okay, good, that's fine. That was all the question.
And she has it in there, and it's a good,
Yeah.
yeah,
and
I
that's
agree, it was,
the-
it was a
that's
nice
kind of the-
detailed form.
What is it, tree removal application form?
Yeah.
That's not like
Draft.
in lieu of an RDA or an NOI, that's
No,
additional.
Well, it would be, for just these specific criteria.
So what do we
It's kind of
review?
why I
She
was
has
asking
the-
if anyone's interested in doing that
The
versus.
Bellingham Conservation Commission
doing
tree removal policy
RDAs
for
for
landowners
everything.
under the Mass Protection Act and Bellingham Wetlands Protection Bylaw.
Is the guidance we've been
So
given
you wanna
for
adopt
other
the policy.
vegetation management related projects that are on our docket that have been continued now. An activity that removes vegetation is altering the resource area, which by definition requires a notice of intent.
I think it's just in buffer.
Right.
Does that apply, or are you
No,
like,
that's
no,
still
you're
that's
just,
still
you're just,
altering.
it's still altering, so it doesn't matter. Okay.
So
Yeah, that
Hannah,
was
what-
why I brought, and I was gonna, I mean, I sent this to legal counsel just to see if that jived with it, because there's a number of towns that have done it. And they kind of state like, this isn't in lieu of an RDA, but this is like, we have found that if you meet these certain conditions, you won't be impacting a resource area. So it's kind of like a,
Categorical exclusion.
yes, essentially, but I have not gotten any feedback from legal counsel, so.
What did the town say about the effect of adopting this policy? They didn't reply.
Oh, yeah, our town council, I haven't gotten any feedback.
She's real busy. She's.
So I was
Oh,
asking
no,
them,
not the town council, the other towns, like, when they enacted this, like, what was the effect?
like,
Like, it works well, or people just go crazy cutting?
It took root and grew really well.
well, I think part of the reason that some towns have implemented this policy, and this is feedback that I've been getting from a lot of people, because I'll get a call about, hey, like, I want to take down this one tree, it's like gonna fall on my house, kind of, not emergency soon, but like, it's gonna fall on my house, or like, I want to take out 2 tree limbs. And then I send them the RDA process, and they go, oh, that's like a lot of work. And so it's not, obviously, you don't want people to circumvent.
Yeah, and look at that, it's an intimidating.
But if you make it like the bar a little bit lower, I think part of the effort from other towns that have implemented this is to have a little bit more control over that. So rather than if people see that and go, I'm not gonna do it, I'm just gonna do it, and if they catch me,
Even
I'll
if
pay the
lit-
fine. But,
Is there
so it's actually trying to like bring people into it a little bit more versus.
What's the
circumvent
reference
anything.
to the Lincoln documents in the portal, just guys?
Abe, good old Abe. No, we don't have, that's just one of the towns
It
you
was
can
an
look at.
example.
Yeah, it was just one of the this document is very similar to the Lincoln document. I just updated it with kind of, because we've talked about instances where, you know, trees are removed, and I put in kind of conditions that you guys have asked for in the RDA process for tree removal.
I am.
So, I like it and I think it's good. My concern is that, I mean, I'm assuming you looked at the same stuff in Mass, right? Because Rhode Island has different wetlands regulations than Mass. And so they might allow something like this, but I'm not sure that we would, or Mass would, but I think we'd be more likely to if we charge the same fee structure as an RDA and included that in the form. It's basically like an abbreviated RDA.
My only concern is that as a matter of principle, it's an administrative change that's circumventing state law. So if we, and it's by vote, so if we're okay with that, that's fine. I just, as a matter of principle, believe that if we were to enact something like this, it would need to go through town vote and be a part of the bylaw to make it actually enforceable.
Yeah, the way Neil said it the other day to me when we were going out the door is, we have permission as a commission, if I'm remembering this right, I am. To make all the policies we want, that's what the commission's bylaws allow us to do. We can make new policies and create them, we don't have to get town approval to do that, because the bylaw states that we can do that. Whether that's
The
true or
only
not,
problem with that is the bylaw can't be, it can be more stringent.
right, it can't be less than the state.
No, it can't be in
Opposition.
opposition to the state act, not the policies under the act, so not the regulations, but the actual act, so the sentence of the act, which includes alteration of resource area. We can't enact something that is opposite of that. So if we're allowing by administrative order alteration of resource area, that's against state law.
Which is absolutely, like, I had that thought, and that's why I wanted to talk to town council before, obviously giving it to everybody, but that.
I don't think it's
So,
a big deal at all.
but you want
But
to make sure.
I don't,
it makes
I
sense.
don't,
Yeah.
I don't want us to have an appeal or something happen because we've approved something that can't stick legally.
Right.
I get where you're coming from, but I also see the conditions attached to it, so I see it as like essentially a negative RDA that's pre-filled out. And yeah, it doesn't have like the kind of gross, in my opinion, RDA form that Mass DP uses, but we do also have authority under the Wetlands Protection Act to be more stringent than them. So we could make an argument that this is more stringent by not wasting our time with.
It's also providing them with a definition of a lot of things that the average person isn't gonna know.
Yeah.
People think Bellingham's bark is worse than their bite, in this case. Bark trees. I have a question about, this, based on the selectman recently having us go look at his property, and right behind his fence line on the edge of his property are two trees. One is straight up and maybe dead, and the arborist has come back to look at it, we met with, but the other one was leaning over, a large limb was leaning up over from conservation land, his shed, and his concern was, can I take this thing down? I want to go through all the proper channels, be above board and blah, blah, and so we looked at it. And agreed that that one hanging one is definitely a risk, not gonna hurt anybody, but it would destroy some property, because that would probably should come down sooner than later. And it's sitting in what is probably obviously wetlands with all the junk and stuff like that beyond the fence. And again, these trees are right up next to the fence. The other one they're gonna come back and look at, if it is dead, in fact, it is so big that it probably would come down, get into some wetlands, if the arborist agrees it's a hazard, and take its whole house out. I mean, it's that big a tree. But the question came up about who's paying for it. And this is not something where I was really very comfortable in speaking to both the selectmen and DPW reps and Hannah and everybody, because I don't think we've ever really discussed it thoroughly. We've had cases where people have had trees that they want to take out that are on conservation land. And my recollection, correct me if anybody else remembers differently, is that generally we've said, okay, you go and take this tree out because you're right, it's gonna fall on your house or whatever. You got an arborist to approve it, we got a plan, you're not gonna stump it, grind it, whatever. And then they go and they do it and they pay for it because we don't get a bill, we don't have to deal with it. If it's on conservation land, technically it's our tree, because it's a safety hazard for them, they wanna get it done, but
It's a safety hazard as determined by who?
common sense / an arborist. If an
Safety
arborist says,
hazard For them, not for us.
well, if a tree on conservation land, this is a question for
Yeah,
legal
it's a fair
counsel.
question.
If a tree, if this dead tree turns out to be dead behind Saunders' house, and it falls on his house, and we knew that it was dead, we had a town arborist say, that's a dead tree, it probably should come out, but we don't take it
So
out.
that's what I asked. So the town arborist said it's dead.
No, we have to have him come back because it was winter time, so he's gonna come back. That was the plan, I think. But that was one tree, and Saunders wasn't worried about that because it's standing straight up. The other one's leaning, this big massive, that's probably this big around trunk up over his shed, and it's 20 feet over his shed. I mean, it's like definitely gonna fall down and crush the shed. If it falls, it may never fall, but we don't know that for sure. It is a risk right now, just the way it is, compared to some of these trees, people have said, it's my fall in my house and I wanna take it out. We've said, okay, it looks dead or what. So my question is about the payment thing. What do you guys think? Anybody remember? a
So
precedent?
in my opinion, that should be, town council should weigh in on that, because it's no different than a neighborly dispute. You have a big tree on someone's neighbor, on your line, it
Well,
falls.
if it's not on if it was on his property, I say it's your cost. We say you're within 25 feet. Thanks for coming to us. Yes, this tree is legit to take out, but it's on your property. You're paying for it. Walk away, done. But
With
this,
conservation land, we've done the same thing in the past.
I think we kind of have, but I'm not
And
sure that
I
that's
don't see-
legit.
I don't see why. a
Well,
selectman
allowing
would
them to
change
do it.
that.
No, it's not the selectmen changing. It's just that's the most recent opportunity that's happened where it's recent, where the
Let's
cost
find a
came up.
Different one.
What's that?
Let's find a different opportunity to discuss that, because.
Well, no, I think we should find out from town council / Dennis Frame, whether the town, if it's, and Dennis Frame might be saying, no, anytime there's something on conservation land or town land on land, that's a risk and an arborist from the town says it should go, whether it's gonna fall on somebody's house or a power line or the road. Just let us know, we'll come to DPW by, the tree guy by, and we'll take it out at
I
our
think
cost,
that's exactly what's gonna happen.
which is fine. I just,
Owning any property. If it's on your land and it's a danger, you are the liable party.
and therefore you should pay for it. If it's on conservation land and we give the approval, because it's not just within the 25 foot of the conservation restrictions or whatever, but on the property, but just, it's definitely on conservation land. I think the town probably should be the ones paying the bill. And probably in future hearings, we should make sure we're legally correct on that. Town-wise, they have some money for it, and B, that we tell the recipient, the person that comes in, that's the case.
But
Yes, we
that's-
know, give the
Those
approval,
are
but
only in cases where it's a tree that's been deemed to have to come down.
absolutely, absolutely. I'm not saying
If someone just wants to take a tree down because they're scared of something falling.
Yeah,
down, it's
it
a
might
completely
fall on
healthy
the
choice.
but it's not
I-
gonna
That's
damage
on them.
No, I'm fine. I'm fine with that. You gotta get an arborist's opinion. It's gotta have a reason for wanting to come down and all that. It's more of it's on conservation land as opposed to the person's property. Don't remember too many cases where we haven't had it paid for by the person who's been willing to do that. But if somebody said, well, who's gonna pay for this? It's on your land. I'd be like, you're right. If it was me, I'd be saying, town, you better pay for this. It's on conservation land. It's gonna fall. You agreed. It's a hazard. Fix it, And I think the town probably has enough money in its budget to deal with that. Occasional trees as it happens. It's not like we're gonna be clear cutting forest. I mean, they cut down 100 trees a year for 4 years around town, spent $1,000 a tree doing that for 4 years because of the gypsy moths and stuff like that. I remember the town meeting where they brought that up for a vote and somebody couldn't do the math and said, $10,000 a tree, how much? Because they heard the number $40,000 or whatever.
They have the equipment. They do veg work.
Yeah,
for
right.
the road.
So an occasional tree here or there, the town doing it, and the guy from the DPW is like, yeah, we can get this company to come in, they would take that tall one down with those, lift or whatever, because we can squeeze by his house without if we need to, if they knew a company they could even recommend to him. So he's gonna come back to us, he may come back to us eventually, but yeah, it wasn't just us being a selectman, it was just the timing of it happened recently. And I thought about the money thing, I was like, yeah, we should be clear on that. So we'll check with town council, we'll check with Dennis, just so you guys are all on the same board, since we're talking about trees and removal, the cost of it eventually for somebody, maybe us, left town. then-
So I had that happen, was in town, and I split the cost with the neighbor who had the concern after a tree warden came and looked at it and said, yeah, this tree doesn't look too healthy if it falls.
Was on your property?
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, okay, well, yeah.
And we talked about it, we worked it out, and he paid for half, and I paid for half.
You got the
And
top half.
everyone was happy.
I want to be nice neighbor.
That's nice of you, okay. All right, anything else about this particular thing so we can adjourn for midnight? I only like the word target that they used at the bottom of the back page under section A.
Target.
Yeah, that came up, yeah.
A tree which is dead or dying and has a structural defect may cause the tree or a portion of the tree to fall on a target.
It's an intentional.
Permanent or temporary.
Yeah, we talked about that. I thought that was a great observation.
I said after the word target, you put a little red symbol like that store has.
Wearing it on your hat.
Okay, and then the other two things were, is there such a thing as a Bellingham's tree and shrub replacement guideline and a Commonwealth's tree and shrub replacement guideline?
So that's the two documents that
That
are
weren't attached.
still Lincoln documents that they're
In the-
they're
in
just
the-
in
That's
the,
somewhere in the portal?
they're in the portal,
Okay.
yeah.
They're the
in
next
same
two.
file, yeah. But I just didn't adapt
As
those
examples.
because I didn't want to do that and have you guys be like, yeah, we don't really.
Well, you
like
only
that,"
wanted
and
to
then
do it
was
if it
like,
made sense to do it.
Exactly.
essentially.
So those documents exist, I just need to double check them, I think I've maybe seen them.
Well, they're not like Bellingham documents, but
Right.
they would be adapted to.
I think I'd wanna know that legally we're allowed to do that.
Right, that's.
Oh, yeah,
at the
before
end, that's
anything
the
gets
key.
voted on, that, absolutely.
I
And
mean, sounds like a good idea, if it's gonna keep people from just.
And it seems aligned, it seems aligned with what we do anyway, like there wasn't, it drew some clarification, because we're adding some definitions. You know, a 10-inch tree, or, you know, and making sure there's alignment with other things.
Okay, any other editorial comments, questions? So what's your next plan to do with this? Redivide
I
it,
will,
add the other
I
documents?
will try to get town council's opinion on it.
Good luck with that.
And if, assuming that town council,
Thank you.
assuming town council agrees, right, then you'd revise it.
Steps.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna refer to.
That's a lot of steps there, I'm
A lot
not
of
like,
steps.
you know, some people like
More
to get the steps in every day, but.
Right, but for the steps that you'll take,
You're not
and,
taking-
once, if town council says, yes, something like this would be appropriate, then you update this form and revise those two others for us to review.
I mean, like, if it didn't say anything, like, if it kind of omitted.
In the first section of the bylaws, I think it does say something about what bylaws are about and how we can do policies, but I haven't read the attention span right.
It says the bylaws, right?
Yeah. All right, anything else, any other business? So I'll now accept the motion to close the hearing meeting the last time.
Nay.
Wait a second.
I'll
Mark.
second it,
Okay.
and then you can say nay.
Okay, let's have a long discussion about it. What do you all think about staying up till midnight?
Don't say that, then we have to record it in the minutes and
No,
then get
no, that-
recorded wrong and I have to go back and change the minutes.
Everybody's verbally listening in or orally listening. Okay, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. Opposed? Unanimous, thank you.
Sir, you'd like to,
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
join the board?